Tommy Edman's about to go off and add to his
Well, yeah,
actual Gold Glove that he already has.
absolutely. Absolutely. Look, when the Los Angeles Dodgers and the New York Yankees are pushing for you, you're probably a pretty good player. And what the Dodgers are doing, they kind of had a bunch of different holes, right? Well, why not get one player that can fill all those holes at once? That's what Tommy Edman does. From 2019 when he debuted to 2023, he did not spend one season at one main position. He played third base, second base, shortstop, all three outfield positions. He can essentially do it all. He's a switch hitter. He hits better from the right side, but he can still produce from the left side. To me, he's a perfect fit for a contender and a perfect fit for LA, just based on maybe the kind of roster construction or lack of depth issues they had. There's some questions in the middle infield, although I did hear today that their plan is to use Tommy in center field to begin with. So this is the beauty of Tommy Edman and why teams like him. He can do everything. He's a fan favorite here. I actually just drove past a banner of his on my way to the stadium. And there's a reason for that. There's a lot of value in this guy. He wasn't someone that the Cardinals necessarily put on the block. But when the right offers came, we knew how much John Mozeliak wanted Erick Fedde and especially Tommy Pham, and we can get into that. It was a no-brainer.
That is exactly what I was going to get to. Great lead-in, Katie. Tommy Pham. I mean, they got rid of him, and he's had a nice career, and now he comes back home again.
Yes. So that's interesting, right? Because Tommy Pham didn't sign until after spring training had ended, and he had actually really expressed an interest to come back to St. Louis in spring training. But the Cardinals looked at their depth at the time. They didn't think Edman would be out for 4 or 5 months. They thought he'd be ready maybe a little bit after opening day, and they didn't think Lars Nootbaar's injury, he had a fractured rib at the time, would keep him out for long. They were right about Nootbaar, but Dylan Carlson got hurt right before spring training, and they ended up using Victor Scott II. Just last time we spoke, we talked about him. So what's happened was it created this big hole that all of a sudden they came back and said, hey, we probably need Tommy Pham. You also factor into the right-handed production, especially what those guys are doing against lefties. The Cardinals have the second lowest OPS against left-handed pitching in the majors. That is absurd to me when you think about who's on this team. Nolan Arenado, Paul Goldschmidt, Wilson Contreras. There should be better production. So the hang-up on this trade, John Mozeliak knew he could get Erick Fedde from the White Sox. Him and Chris Getz had lots of conversations. This deal was agreed to more or less. They knew they could do it for about the last week. What the hang-up was Mo's insistence to get Tommy Pham. And kind of a full circle moment here because they could have had him in February. Hindsight's 2020. I totally get that. But that was the hang-up, and that's how the Dodgers had to get in because the White Sox weren't matching up on a prospect package for both Fedde and Pham from the Cardinals. Mo knew how much the Dodgers wanted Edman. The Dodgers have a very robust minor league system, as we know. That's how the 3-team trade came to fruition early Monday morning. But it was because of the Cardinals' insistence, Mo's insistence, that Tommy Pham was included in this deal.
Wow. I mean, listen, I played with Tommy Pham a long time ago when he first came up with the Cardinals. So, I mean, that was 10 years ago. So, man, talk about full circle. All right, but there's a young outfielder, right-handed hitter, that was supposed to be the future of the Cardinals, Jordan Walker. What's happened there? And I've seen him talked about being traded. Have the Cardinals given up on him, or what is going on with him? Because he's not hitting in AAA either.
Yeah, AJ, I know Jordan Walker is your guy, but it's
my guy.
I think it should have been their guy, right? That's what they were banking on. It's funny when you think about who the Cardinals were planning their starting outfield to be. It was Lars Nootbaar, Tommy Edman, Jordan Walker. That outfield never played one single day together this season. It's hard to really understand what's going on with Jordan Walker in Memphis because he was optioned before. He did a nice job of figuring things out. You know, it's the same problems as last year. He's missing on the sliders down and away, and he's not getting the ball off the ground. The Cardinals were able to see him make those changes in 2023, and they were also aided a little bit by not exactly being in postseason contention because they were not a good baseball team last year. This year, those changes haven't been as dramatic. They haven't been reflected in Memphis, and if you can't do it in AAA, you probably can't do it in the major leagues. They don't want to rush Jordan. They really want to make sure they get him right this time. But Mo and Ollie Marmol, their manager, made it clear until he shows dramatic changes in his swing and in his approach in Memphis, he's not going to be in consideration for a call-up here. Again, it's disappointing. It probably leads into the Cardinals' issues against left-handed pitching like we talked about earlier. Jordan Walker was supposed to be right there with those guys I mentioned on guys that could produce and slug the ball. He hasn't been able to do so. It's definitely concerning and ultimately just feels like a lost year for him and his development. but he's definitely not someone that the Cardinals have given up on.
Katie, I want to finish with this and shout out the trade deadline watch that you've been putting together. I know you've been hustling with Patrick Mooney and Ken Rosenthal and others over at The Athletic. Anything else that you can point out from outside of Cardinals land that has stood out to you that you guys either covered in the past several days or that could be emerging that you've been tied into?
The relief market is just insane. You're seeing astronomical asks, and usually relief pitching is the easiest thing to acquire because everyone needs it. So to me, like, it's not surprising that there's so many relief trades. What's surprising to me is the value in them. I mean, we are just seeing some crazy returns, lots of team control. We're looking at what San Diego gave up, thinking about what the Phillies gave up. It caught me off guard for sure. And I know it caught some teams off guard. You're thinking about what Tampa Bay is doing. I mean, you have to wonder, at this close to the deadline, we have about 2.5 hours left. Is Pete Fairbanks available? Because the Braves have been adamant that they don't want to trade him, but would they reconsider it for the right package? Those are the kinds of things I'm looking at. We haven't had a big, like, buzzer beater out of nowhere trade yet. So I'm looking forward to that. I don't think the Cardinals will do that, but you never know. But that's what I'm looking for. Who are we not talking about that's going to get traded? That's, I think, the biggest storyline, or maybe the biggest question with, again, 2.5 hours remaining.
Vladdy Jr. Sorry. Allergic to mid teams that are not taking advantage of a market that they should be. But anyway, Katie, you're the best. Thank you so much. Appreciate you for swinging by. Have fun in the ballpark tonight, and hopefully we get some deadline buzzer beater deals.
You got it, guys. Thanks so much.
Say hi to Tommy for me.
Yeah.
You got it.
Katie Wu, please follow her on Twitter and, of course, check out all her work in The Athletic. We'll be right back. Okay, here we go. YouTube fam, we're here. We're excited about it. The show is running for hours on Bally Sports National Television. Okay, it's in their app, the whole deal. The show is running on Twitter, everything else. So I don't know what the deal is. All I know is superstar cast behind the scenes. We're able to put it back together. That is the most important part, and we do the same thing every day. So YouTube was being a little weird today. We kind of jabbed it, kept poking it, and then it put us on. So hello, everyone. You missed some, but you didn't miss everything. You've got 3 more hours with us. So tell your friends. Best place to watch if you're online, obviously, and interacting with us is YouTube. We're going to take questions. I'm going to see them now throughout the rest of the show. I'm going to ask them to our guests. We're going to go over comments. Every trade that goes down, we'll break it down. There's been a couple even since we spoke, like Lucas Erceg just got moved to the Kansas City Royals. So we'll wait about a minute so that the national TV audience can get a good look on that. But we are here, so we appreciate you for hanging around. This is usually one of our bigger days on the YouTube.
Was that Roberts? Was that Roberts' person? Because he brought it up before. He said he wouldn't be surprised if Lucas Erceg got moved.
Yes,
that was who Robert was waiting.
That's a good point. And for some people that were asking in the chat, what did I miss? So you got probably maybe missed like a couple questions to Katie Wu that we were getting into. We went over a couple of the kind of smaller trades, like a Josh Bell. And then we were speaking to Robert Murray more about rumors. We went over the Giants deal, though we can cover that a little bit more later. The Giants-Braves trade that was done last night, but you didn't miss a ton. We'll get to a lot more coming up here. So let's step aside for like 30 seconds as we're about to come back for the entire audience. We'll go over the Lucas Erceg trade. We'll go over anything that's been popping up lately, but there's still quite a few names that are going to get moved. Like, I can't see a world where Jack Flaherty doesn't get traded. He has to get a certain price because they can get a compensation pick that's in like the 30s after this season, which is a pretty high pick, but he's been a stud this year. So I can't see someone like that not getting moved. Tanner Scott is guaranteed to get moved unless he decides he's moving to Mars tomorrow. So anyway, we'll be back in a sec. We'll go over some of these deals. Hey, you never know.
Mars.
All right, what's up, FT fam? We're back. Let's go over the latest trade because I think this is a big one for a player that most people probably don't know about since he's been pitching for Oakland, and he doesn't have the easiest name to pronounce either. Lucas Erceg has been a star out of the bullpen for the A's. Not to mention he's overshadowed by Mason Miller, but the Royals just picked up a high-leverage reliever that could really help them down the stretch and in the playoffs if they get there.
Yeah, this is a guy that most teams would have died for. Plus, he's got a lot of control left.
Yeah.
5 more years, right?
He is, I believe, under control, until 2028-ish.
Yeah.
I'll double check.
So, this guy's been the 8th inning setup guy for Mason Miller. And he's closed some games for him when Miller was unavailable. So, this is a great pickup if you're a Royals fan. I mean, my money line bet on the Royals just looked – he won't make it today, but, man, it looks better now.
Oh, you're saying picking the Royals to win? Yeah, I don't think he's going to make it. When you get a phone call at 3:40 Eastern – I don't know where they're playing tonight. I'm not as locked in, but yeah, this was a guy who was purchased from Milwaukee, right? In May of last year. He was a second rounder, in 2016 by the Brewers. Fast forward to 2023, and this is not a guy that had been able to figure it out, and then all of a sudden it has clicked for him, and he's thriving. Yeah,
Twins.
4-seam, 2-seam, curveball.
By the way,
better.
Much like last year, left. The Twins didn't make anything last year. They just sat there and watched every other team sell in the Central. This year, some teams are buying, and the Twins haven't done anything.
Yeah, it's a very different division this year.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, they are massively hamstrung. Anything they do has to subtract, apparently, to an extent. So if they bring something on, they have to be able to dump money.
Why?
We know
the
why.
Poll lads have more money than anybody, other than maybe Stevie Cohen.
They're probably watching right now, too.
They made too much.
Well,
they made too much in the playoffs last year.
Were the playoff tickets free last year?
No, yeah, they were. It was like it's like a Midwest donation thing. They were like, "Oh, we don't know about the trade deadline, and we don't know about how to charge for playoff tickets because AJ didn't tell us how much we're supposed to pay, how much we're supposed to charge for tickets."
Hey, they might shut us up in the next 2 hours and make some big trade.
But who? Who are they going to get? A big trade.
That's what they're saying, though. Who do we need? We have one of the best bullpens in the game, or on paper we do. We have a rotation that is completely.
Yeah. Their rotation's like 23rd in ERA.
They need a starter. Pablo Lopez hasn't pitched at all.
Hurt. How about Garrett Crochet for the Twins? He costs nothing. He's making $800,000. He's a league minimum player, essentially, this year.
They won't trade him in the division. Sure, I'll take him for...
Who do you want?
Royce Lewis?
No, not big leaguers.
I don't know the Twins farm system.
White Sox don't
I'm on the phone with the White Sox. I'm like, yo, I saw what you did yesterday. You need prospects because you didn't get any. You say, no offense, Miguel Rojas. Not Miguel Rojas, sorry. Miguel Vargas. They're calling him like a middle-of-the-order bat aircraft carrier. I don't know. I think the Dodgers
if he's that way, the Dodgers would have kept him.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's they?
The White
Sox people are saying that Miguel Vargas is going to hit in the middle of the order for him for the next 5 years.
Yes.
AJ, stop it.
I didn't say it.
The White Sox.
Hey, I read the paper. I get the paper from Chicago.
You see the paper today?
Yeah, I get it every day. I get it delivered from Chicago.
I'm coming to save them.
Yeah, they need you. But anyway, I mean, if you're the Twins, okay, I can come up with something that easily makes sense. They have a nice top 10. I mean, even if you want to, cut it down to top 5, like
Brooks
Walker
Lee.
Jenkins,
Brooks
big
Lee's
deal prospect. Brooks Lee's not. How about Luke, the guy we met, Kratz, who I can't say his name, but he's been smacking the ball. Luke Keishel.
Yeah. No chance you say that last name.
No chance. I tried once when I was with him. They have a package that could land them anyone if they were willing to give up high-end prospects.
The White Sox won't trade Crochet in the division.
No matter what, even if it's going to make
They won't
them
trade him
much
to the Cubs, and they won't trade him in the division because if he continues to get better, Chris gets off to hear about it for the rest of his career. So that won't happen.
Well, that's a major mistake.
The only teams that trade,
only
teams that trade in their division are confident teams because they know what their formula is to either extract a player for their big league team or extract prospects because they're going to fit into their system.
Okay, let's bring in Jim Duquette, former general manager for a long time, crushes it on Sirius XM, and you can see him on SNY covering the Mets as well. My buddy Duke. Duke, great to see you. We're trying to come up with a deal. Hey, what's up? We're trying to come up with a deal for the last team remaining that has not made a trade in the past 7 days, and that's the Minnesota Twins. We know that they have to basically unload salary if they take on a player. So I was like, what about Garrett Crochet?
I got it.
What?
Garrett Cole scratched tonight. He's getting traded to the Twins.
I don't think they can afford him.
Oh.
Duke, your thoughts?
Well, we talked to Derek Felvey. I don't know if you guys had either him or Thad Levine on, but they're trying to do like a buyer for buyer deal. Because they can't take on any money, and so that complicates things even more, right? Because most of the buyers are trying to add from the sellers, and so that buyer to buyer deal is tough to do. And then on top of that, the one guy who does those type of trades is Jerry DiPoto, and he told us the other day that he's not going to deal with the buyer to buyer anymore because he's just adding. He's got prospects to burn basically, and so. It's hard to find, the conversation or the matchup between Minnesota and whoever. Even though Derek said he was having more conversations, buyer to buyer versus buyer to seller. So it's hard, in terms of the matchup there with any of the salaries. They just can't, unfortunately, can't take on any money. Which is the worst case scenario to be in.
Yeah, it's got to be super frustrating for them to be in a situation like that.
I have to ask this, though.
What?
They have money.
Of course they do.
They have – the Pollads, I've said this, are one of the richest owners in the sport.
But they don't care. They this is their cap right now, Duke. They made the playoffs. They built up to this moment for a long time. They made playoff money, and then they told poor Thad and Derek, who do an awesome job out there, it's all got to stay stagnant.
Yeah. Well, and how about what's even worse? Pittsburgh, their owner – told the media that they do have money, and then he went back and told the front office they don't have money. So that's even worse because at least your owner said one thing, but the marching orders are different, and now you're the front office and you have to sit there and wear it, which is basically we know the track record of some of these teams, so we kind of know Pittsburgh doesn't like to take on any dough anyway, but still it's more than annoying if you're sitting there, not just in the front office. If you're a fan of the Pirates aren't that far away from being a postseason team with the way they're constructed, with some of their pitching. They could add some offense, they could add a reliever, and it wouldn't take much for them to get into the third wild card. But again, a lot of this is behind the scenes things that we don't know about, or it somehow leaks out, and that's what I'm hearing in Pittsburgh.
Is there a way for Pittsburgh to upgrade in the sense that they just got Jalen Beeks? Can they get rid of like a Aroldis Chapman, so that's some money, and then bring someone else? I know Chappie's he's a piece to their bullpen. You can't get rid of pieces. Is there a workaround with a player that you're hearing that could really help this team? Because I think they would be dangerous in the playoffs, especially in a short series.
Yeah, no question. I think what. Like some of the young guys that we were hearing might be available. Well, let's say, let's go down to Baltimore, right? We were hearing Mountcastle's name being mentioned. I don't think they should be moving Ryan, but they're trying to find a spot for Kobe Mayo, and so, Mountcastle's not making all that much money. You could make a trade. And by the way, they need back end reliever. Not that they're necessarily interested. Can you imagine that bullpen, Chapman and Kimbrel? There's a lot of question marks. I mean, there's some gas being thrown, but there's a lot of question marks and a lot of balls, and walks late in the game. So, I'm not sure that's a perfect fit, but I'm just trying to figure team that's looking to move offense and what kind of money, like your suggestion, Eric, about having, a guy like Chapman coming back. It's something somewhere along the lines there. It's not a perfect match. And, maybe there's something in Texas, that would work there too. But Pittsburgh needs offense badly, and if you can't find any young, controllable offensive pieces, I don't think for me they should be able to. They could have used Josh Bell, who was just moved, for basically not much there to Arizona. Just even bringing Josh back, who has been swinging the bat really well. Since I think the middle of June. So. I feel like there are some options that they could have gone down this road and for not a ton of money here. We're just talking about a third of their salary for the rest of the year.
Yeah, every team can afford it, Jim, if they want to, right? Every single team out there,
yeah.
Even the lowly Pittsburgh Pirates with Bob Nutting doesn't want to pay anything. They can afford whoever they want because it's only a little bit, like you said, a third of the salary. Now let's go to a big money team. Your Mets. Are they going to do anything else? I mean, listen, they're surprising everybody. Remember, this is supposed to be their down year. Here they are in a wild card race. The Braves are very vulnerable with what has happened and injuries they have. So will the Mets make another move to help bolster what they've already done?
Boy, AJ, they need to do one more move in my mind. You know, I think I like the moves that they made so far. You know, the two relievers with Maton and Stanek. You know, they've got the proven track record. The problem is they haven't been able to realize the full benefit because they were replacing two other injured guys, right? The Reed Garrett and the Nunez kid who got injured on Friday. So we haven't seen that cumulative effect or the add-on effect that you have with a trade, at least in the bullpen so far. I think eventually we'll see that. I like the Winker pickup as well, adding the offensive piece there too. So, but they need a starter. And they've toyed around with taking Jose Budo out of the bullpen and making him a starter. He might slightly upgrade you where McGill and David Peterson are right now, but then you got to move one of those guys to the bullpen, and it's a little uncertain how they would do. Budo's been fantastic in the bullpen. So and you're really trying to upgrade one of those starters, and you could let's say you flip McGill into the pen. Now you improved, I think, in two spots if you can trade for somebody. So I thought they were supposedly checking on Trevor Rogers before he got moved to Baltimore. They've been talking about Flaherty. We know the price tag is extremely high, and there's like a half a dozen teams on him. I thought Snell was a perfect fit. If he's going to be moved, they can take on money. They still have to give up prospect or two, but I don't think you have to give up as much if you're taking on $31 million. I'd love to see Blake Snell with the Mets. Like, those are the options for me, or maybe Tyler Anderson. Would be, it's not perfect for me from what they need with Senga out, but they have to find a starter here somewhere.
Yeah, and it's just, you don't get to decide when your winning window is sometimes. So
No.
We'll see if Uncle Steve can just, deliver a little knockout punch at the deadline. Duke, awesome having you on. I know you're back on Sirius coming up soon too. So for anyone that wants to catch a little bit later on, go get after it. I was listening to you and Farron this morning. Always appreciate you, Duke. Thank you.
All right. You got it, guys. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Thank you, Jim Duquette, with us. He's on SNY, Sirius. Follow him at Jim Duquette, GM on Twitter. Be right back with Ken Rosenthal. What's up, FT fam? We are basically commercial free on YouTube. I can't control when YouTube pops up ads in your face, but we will barely go to even our little breaks that we do sometimes for 2 minutes in between our TV breaks. So I'm going to look at questions from all of the FT fam.
We're bringing on Ken, right?
That is the plan. That is what I've
Do we have
told.
to be serious with Ken, or can we?
I think we have to be very serious
today.
Do
Very
you
serious.
think you can
Ken
do
Day.
it? You did get a good smile out of him yesterday. That was impressive.
It took a while though. Actually, Kratz got it from him.
Was it Kratz?
The original one, but he smiled. But then when he got to hang up, that made him smile. That was
yes. To actually get the hang up. I want to see the hang up while he's on, so the screen goes black. So anyway, we'll talk to Ken. We'll get to some questions. Obviously, he'll have some news to report for us as well. So I did see Joseph asking anything with the Mets. We just asked that to Duke, who's a better source than we are for something like that. Same with Drew asking are the Mets in talks with any relief pitchers. But as Duke mentioned, starting pitching is now the goal for a team like them. I'm sure they would take another reliever too. I mean, they just need pitching in general. Mm-hmm. They weren't prepared for this, if this makes sense. They weren't prepared to be a playoff team, in my mind.
No,
on a
but the Braves going down in flames kind of have helped them.
Arizona not
doing what we thought they would do. And some of the other teams not being as good as we thought.
Cubs
have let them in. Giants. Have let them in, and now here they go. And now they're like, whoa. I mean, David Stearns is like, wait a second. I actually get to make some moves possibly today.
He looks really good, right? He takes over the team, and already he's like, see?
Just
needed me.
All I got to do is walk in the door, and teams magically are better.
Exactly. Everett asking if Bellinger will trade it. I'll answer that one. I would say hell no, just because he hasn't been healthy for a good chunk of the season now, and the contract is complicated. He might opt in. And teams do not want to be on the hook for it's pretty backloaded too, like $30 million next year and something like that the year after. So I'm going to put a hard no on that one. Agreed? We don't have to spend a lot of time on it. I don't see that.
I want to hit Ken on the Giants. I feel like the Giants could be played like they still have Conforto. If they're trying to get under that amount, like Blake Snell, Ken said, I don't see it happening. Is it more likely now? Right?
Yeah, good call. So, okay, let's get ready for Ken. Back in 10 seconds for Inside Scoop. Inside Scoop time. FT Senior Insider Ken Rosenthal with us. Check out all of his work on The Athletic and Twitter as well. Kratz, I'm bringing you in for this one. Go, ask your question about the Giants.
You said yesterday that Snell most likely won't go, but now we're talking about possibly luxury tax implications if the Giants trade some guys. Is that bringing him back into the fold? Because there's a number out there. I'm not exactly sure what it is. Could that bring him and Conforto and anything with the Giants back into the fold?
I still don't expect him to get traded. Now, I've been wrong before, Eric, and this is a wild couple hours we've got ahead of us, but it appears to me that with the Soler and Cobb moves and even a Conforto move, that they are just kind of reconfiguring their roster, opening spots for younger players. Now, they've got Hayden Birdsong, who can take the spot that Cobb they assumed would take once he got healthy, and he's pitched really well. He's a young pitcher, and they want to make a spot for Luis Matos in the outfield. So that combined with their desire to make the DH more flexible instead of just having Soler there, it seems to me that's what they're doing. But again, it's hard to read in the middle of it. I just don't see them quitting when they're 4 games out of the wild card and when they've got the makings of a really good rotation, even without Alex Cobb, who hasn't really pitched for them in a while anyway.
I mean, is Farhan Zaidi, he's punting? I mean, I don't understand. He came into this year on the hot seat. Because if you're saying what you're saying, no, but what you're saying is that, like, this was not going to be my question, but your answer brought me to something. This is like they're going back to the Gabe Kapler days. They went back to Jorge Soler. They're like, all right, we're going to have a big right-handed DH. He can hit us 30. We're going to trade him away for more roster flexibility. And guess what we can do? We can platoon every day. Let's go Giants.
I understand what you're saying, AJ, but it's not punting. And it's reconfiguring. And Soler was better in the last month. I get it. But overall, wasn't that good. Didn't drive in many runs for them. And they do save all the money. They traded all that money away. So perhaps they have a buy-type move in store as well. We're going to find out in the next couple hours.
Okay, got it. All right, Ken, I was going to ask you about the latest 2 moves. DeYoung, you reported switching dugouts from White Sox to Casey. I mean, I'm sure he's pumped about that. And then Andrew Chafin allegedly going to the Rangers. What are the Rangers doing?
The Rangers are trying, and they wanted to add another reliever. They're still looking for a bat as well. They would like to add another hitter. And this is a team that clearly still believes it can win, and they've got Josh Young coming back. They've got the pitchers we've discussed coming back. And if they get on a little bit of a roll here, they'll be right in the middle of this thing. They kind of are right in the middle of this thing. So that's what they're doing. DeYoung, to me, just seems like a depth move for Kansas City. Some protection in the infield, gives them a veteran presence. It's not really a difference maker by any stretch of the imagination, but it enhances their roster.
All right,
and the other move that they made, Lucas Urseg, the reliever, that's a big move.
That is a big move, and we hit that, and I love hearing that. You love that move, too. The Royals are doing some things, but you're right in the middle of the fire right now. What are you hearing that we do not know right now?
Well, if I had heard something you didn't know, I'd put it out there and report it. But actually, right now, we are in the middle of a lot going on, and I'm hearing a lot. So hold on one second, guys.
Yes.
This is
Blackburn.
What we're here for. That's what we're here for. We appreciate this.
Blackburn.
So there's just a ton going on, and it's kind of hard to pick your head up and give you good context on this stuff. But we're going to see the Marlins do a lot of things. We're going to see a lot more happen. And the main ones I'm watching, the main ones we're all waiting for. Flaherty, number 1. Does Crochet get moved, number 2? And where does Tanner Scott go, number 3?
All right. Blackburn allegedly just got traded. So, Robert Murray broke one, so Ken, break it for us. Blackburn to the Mets.
Is that where he went?
That's what they're being reported by somebody.
Okay.
Well, AJ, I'm not reporting that. I'm talking to you.
Yeah, exactly. He's talking to us.
All right, Ken, hang up.
Okay, now I got to go.
Yep. Ken, thank you. We'll see you on Twitter.
Okay, see ya.
See ya. All right, Ken Rosenthal with us on FT. That's good stuff right there. That's perfect. Perfect. And obviously, we'll have Ken on later this week to break down the rest of the trades. We have many more insiders and writers joining us throughout the day. We are also going to talk to Susan Slusser about what's going on with San Francisco and with Oakland, right? Both of those teams getting more interesting.
San Fran
now.
is confusing to me because he's like, they're not punting, but they're getting rid of everybody. And I know they got Ray coming back and Snell's doing better, but they still need somebody that can hit.
Maybe they'll get a bat.
Maybe they don't think anybody needs to hit. Look at their offseason. They didn't go after guys that hit. Maybe they're like tripling down now. Like, hey, we're just going to pitch. We're going to pitch.
They went after hitters. I'll give you a rebuttal. I mean, Soler and Matt Chapman, those were upgrades at the time.
You were saying Matt Chapman was a hitter this offseason?
Yeah. He's an all-around player, but he's an upgrade. I mean, he's an above-average hitter. I thought he was getting too much of a bad rep. And yes, he's not a superstar bat. He's a superstar glove, but he can hit. He's still an above-average third baseman with the bat over the life of his career, in my mind. And he still is this year. He's a 5-win player, 119 OPS plus. He's got a decent on-base percentage, 334, 424 slug in a ballpark that just does not let you slug much. It's been a good player for them.
I think he's a valuable player. I think he's a valuable player that adds to their defense, that adds to their pitching. And I think what if they go in with Crochet?
The Giants?
To add another pitcher. No?
I don't think they have the prospects to pull off the deal. Anyway, we got to step aside. More guests joining us in just a little bit. So we'll be right back. For those of you watching on Valley Sports TV, keep commenting too. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to FT. We'll answer those questions during break. All right, the Mariners are getting JT Schwab from the Marlins. So another reliever add. My whole thing is is he better than Stanek? Because I started thinking about our conversation yesterday about how much adding and subtracting the Mariners did, and I was like, hold up. They love that, but also a lot of it's money moves. Jerry's really good at making trades, so he's kind of the perfect guy for Seattle because Seattle runs like Minnesota. They go to him and they say, this is the hard number. You have a salary cap. You do whatever you want with that. So if you want to boost this position, right? If you want to add a Rosarena, then you have to knock off a few $1 million off the bullpen, but you don't want to disrupt the productivity of the bullpen. So you got to bring in a Yimi, you got to bring in a Schwab, but then you got to trade away a Stanek. That's how I see it. I'm pretty sure that's how it's running there.
For sure. That's what they did this offseason. It was like they saved $1 million, but they got rid of 2 and they added 3. And now is their offense that much better without Eugenio Suarez and Jorge Polanco? They're clearly just cost neutral.
That's why. But some people are confused. It's very easy when you look at the numbers to understand what's going on there, right? You try and plug in a number and say, hey, can I keep myself in the same range here? Stanek costs $4 million. Schwab costs a little over 1, right? Those are your differences there. That's why trades like that go down. Just explaining when people get confused why stuff happens. There's not a hard salary cap in baseball, but some teams have one. So just understand that. As
some teams?
Many teams. Sometimes people on YouTube, they'll crush me, certain sons of owners and stuff will go on and they'll be like, why is Scott talking about the money? I'm like, because it matters. That's why some of these deals are done.
Okay, so look at the teams. I hate to say this, but look at the teams that are kind of iffy with their money. There are a lot of teams that have inherited their teams from their father. We've talked about the A's.
Mm-hmm.
The Tigers, right, aren't doing what Mike Ilitch did with his son, right, since he passed away. The Twins, Carl Pohlad, although Carl was not exactly spending a lot either.
No.
But, I mean, there's a few of them that line up where you're like, wait a second. As you go down the line, you're like, we're getting less and less spendy.
You ever seen a son do the opposite? I haven't. You ever seen a son take over a team and go, I'm going to go hard because we're going to have a good time. I didn't earn any of this.
Tommy boy.
Tommy Boy. Like
Tommy
Steinbrenner.
Callahan.
Even the Steinbrenners.
Callahan Auto Parts.
We sell brake pads.
Oh, I really like that. Rumor alert. So we're tracking everything that's going on right now, and obviously reports that are out there. So we'll keep an eye on what's going on in the trade world at the moment. So it looks like in that Royals deal that they're finalizing with the A's, Oakland's going to get Mason Barnett, Will Klein, Jared Dickey from KC. It had to be a nice package of prospects for a player who I was even a year off. Is under control through 2029, like AJ said, 5 more years of Lucas Erceg. Obviously, relievers are volatile. You don't know what you're going to get year to year, and this guy didn't have it for a long time, but if he found it and it clicked, it's a huge pickup for Kansas City.
If we didn't lose Ken, I was going to ask him about Mason Miller because of what Erceg got. Like, is that just showing that Mason Miller is completely off the market because this is what Lucas Erceg got, a 29-year-old reliever, 28-year-old reliever, that, yes, he has 5 years of control, but imagine the haul that Mason Miller would get.
I don't think he's off the market. I just think the price tag is wild. Like,
that's what I mean.
Have a show.
He's off the market because of the price tag.
Yes. So we're going till 6:30, right? And then on Baseball America's YouTube channel, we'll do the prospect breakdown because it's better to do it after all the deals are done. So we'll have the Baseball America crew. And JJ Cooper is going to join this show as well at some point to break down the prospects. But we had our meeting, our production meeting before that show, right before this one, right? And JJ and the rest of the BA crew were talking about how there really haven't been top end prospects. There's been some guys who've had breakouts who are moving up their rankings, but I think they said nobody in their top 100 still. And you don't see that very often. But that is what it would take to get a Mason Miller. You need to get players
2 or 3 of those guys.
Right. I would say at least 2 players, right, that are in the top 100 prospects overall in all of baseball.
Yeah. You decimate a farm system.
Yeah.
For that. Now, unless you're the Orioles, who have enough prospects to still keep them coming.
Yeah.
Or even maybe the Dodgers, I guess, are probably the top 2. But other than that, that would decimate most teams' farm systems. And most GMs aren't willing to give that up.
No.
Not for an inning.
They value those players too high. Yeah, not for an inning. Exactly. And a guy who's gotten hurt in the past. It's true.
They just chimed in, Baseball America. We haven't seen a top 100 prospect traded yet.
Did they just see that?
They literally in the chat.
There you go. Exactly. Love you, BA.
Thank you,
We'll talk to you guys. Yeah, good call.
Which is amazing because there's been a lot of trades.
Yeah.
Right? There's been a lot of trades made, and there's some big names. I mean, Fetty, listen, I hate to keep going back to the White Sox, but Fetty was one of the bigger names because of his cheapness. And they didn't get a top 100 prospect back. Right? I mean, you look at, there's a whole bunch of guys that have gone, that have made moves and big names, and there hasn't been one. Trevor Rogers is another one. None of those guys are top 100 prospects. You're like, wow, from the Orioles farm system?
The White Sox one's the one that's going to be crushed. It was Fetty.
Pham and Crochet.
And it was Kopech. Not Crochet.
Yeah, sorry, Kopech. Sorry.
Dude, I mean, you've watched a lot of Kopech. I've seen him more.
He can be
lately.
he can dominate.
He can dominate.
Oh.
He's streaky. He'll give up homers sometimes. He'll even do some weird things, like you've seen some balks from him like this year, right? More than most. But also I was reading this morning that he's made some tweaks, like just in the past 2 or 3 weeks, that caught teams' attention at a higher level again. Something with his cutter. I
don't know. I was watching highlights of him when he got traded last night, talking about Kopech. And I'm telling you, I don't know if this is true or not, but I was watching, and they kept showing highlights of him punching dudes out. And his glove, when he would turn, was different on certain pitches. And I'm like, oh, because a dude throwing 100 like that shouldn't be giving up that many homers. And he was I can't explain it on here because we don't have enough time with everything happening. But Kratz, like the way he would, when he was in the windup, the way he would turn, it was like wider and like not as wide on pitches, and it wouldn't go as far back. Now, I mean, I don't know when some of these highlights were from, but if that's what he's doing, that would tell you why a guy throwing 100 would give up so many homers.
And you get that to LA, You get that to New York, Philly, Boston, Baltimore, any of those teams that are really trying and putting that effort in, they got somebody immediately that's going to snap that up and be like, hey, as you're coming back, you rotate. As you're coming back, you're closing your glove off, whatever it is. And all of a sudden you could see Michael Kopech's he's going to slot into that bullpen with very little fanfare and very little, it's going to be, hey, go out and pitch and just do what you do. 6th, 7th inning, easy spot in the lineup. He could be the steal of that entire trade.
Some fans are asking in the chat right now, and yes, if you want to ask us questions live, best spot by far. You can watch wherever you're watching, but make sure you hang out with us in the YouTube chat. At Foul Territory Show, type it in on YouTube, and we're all over the place here with your questions. So I'm seeing multiple people ask right now, anything on the Braves? Braves not doing much yet. The Braves made a huge trade.
But the Braves are fascinating to me.
Because they need a starter?
And they need an outfielder. They got 2 DHs now. Listen, nothing against Ozuna. I mean, all I remember of Marcelo Ozuna playing the outfield was the time in St. Louis where he ran up the fence and the ball landed before the wall. He's like, I'm going to rob it. Oh, no, the ball's way up there.
And that was the end of Marcelo Ozuna.
And that was the last time he played the outfield.
He's not playing the outfield, though. He's DH.
I know, but they're going to put Soler in the outfield.
Correct.
He's not a great outfielder either.
I know.
And every time he played the outfield, he has a tendency to come up with an injury or two because he has to run a lot.
Yes, he does.
And that's why the Giants were like, oh, he's going to be our DH. He's going to hit 30 for us.
And he's played 0 innings in the outfield this year.
That's kind of what I'm saying. So you have
He's much faster and in better shape. He's more of a...
But you have Rosario, who's not a great outfielder either.
Right.
And then you're going to have Harris come back in center.
He's going to play 3 positions.
And then you got Duvall in right.
Yeah, they're going to add.
I mean, that's not a good...
What about trade deadline? Everyone talks about who teams are getting. What about Kelenic? You got to remember, he's taking somebody's spot. Kelenic has... He's been serviceable out there. And he has been kind of that's what I always look at with this stuff. Dudes are moving. Dudes are taking people's positions. And I get it. Jorge Soler is better than Jared Kelenic. But is the whole package of Jared Kelenic better than Jorge Soler as a left fielder?
Well, we're going to find out.
Well, Kelenic, Barrett, Soler. That's your outfield for the playoffs if you make it.
What do you do with Duvall?
4th outfielder.
Rosario? What if it's a lefty?
4th outfielder.
You can't have 2 4th outfielders.
5th outfielder. That is what it looks like. I'm telling you, that's
someone's going to have to get. I don't want to say DFA'd but I don't know
why. That's your.
I think they're going to trade
right now. They're carrying Laureano. Who do you think they're trading?
About Duvall to the Mariners. Every time there's a hitter that has a pulse, I'm like, to the Mariners.
No,
he's not making a lot.
Actually, Kelenic and Duvall though the goal for them at the start of the year was to platoon them, right? Mm-hmm. Duvall wasn't hitting.
Then Acuna got hurt.
Acuna gets hurt.
Duvall didn't hit. Still hasn't hit.
Yeah, but now you fast forward. That is the ideal scenario there, is you have the depth of Duvall and Rosario. No, their focus should be on a starter. I mean, while we've been chatting, like we mentioned, Blackburn gets picked up by the Mets. We're going to talk to Susan Slusser soon, so she'll give us the lowdown on all of the pitching that's coming out of the Bay Area right now. Referee, who's been a member with us for a long time, and by the way, if you want an FT membership, just press join where you're watching right now if you're watching on YouTube. But Ref said, you think the Yankees will make a push for a legit pitcher since Cole is down? He got scratched, but they said, what, general soreness or something?
Soreness, which is interesting. But
yeah.
Well, when's Jack Flaherty getting traded?
In the next hour and a half.
I mean, let's go.
I'll tell you why there's a little bit more of a holdup. Did you see what Kikuchi went for yesterday?
Yeah. Dana Brown's getting slaughtered.
That was a haul for the Toronto Blue Jays. Okay. Now, compare Kikuchi and Jack Flaherty. To me, this year, they're not in the same stratosphere. Jack Flaherty's pitching like a 1.
Yeah. He's got under 3 ERA.
Kikuchi might not even start a playoff game for the Astros. So, whatever
the Astros are just trying to get there, and then they're like, all right, we'll go with Fromber, Verlander, Hunter Brown has been pitching well, whoever else, and say, all right, we'll figure it out from there.
Yeah, I'm okay with going for it. You know, whatever it is. If the Astros make it deep in the playoffs or win a World Series, who the heck cares who they traded, right? Like, is Jake Bloss a 1? No. Is
Loperfido
a superstar? No. And what's his name's kid? Billy Wagner's kid, Willie. They're all big leaguers. So it was a haul. And you can definitely make a case that they gave up, quote, too much. But that's what the deal cost, right? And clearly, like, they probably called about Flaherty. So the asking price should be higher for Jack Flaherty. Number one, he's a much better pitcher this year. Number two, the Tigers need to get significant value. Otherwise, they get like a 33rd overall pick, which is very high value. You know what I'm saying? So they need probably 2 high-end prospects in a deal for a 2-month rental. And teams are a pain these days. They're tough. I'm saying on the other side. Would you rather
get 2 guys, let's say they're not high-level prospects. Let's say they're not top 100 guys. Let's say they're, 5-ish, 6-ish range in the whoever prospect list you want to look at, right? They're just outside the top 100, let's say, okay? Or the 33rd pick, like you said.
33rd pick.
Which isn't guaranteed to be anything, because the 33rd pick could be anybody. It could be Scooter Braun over here with bad hair and small shirts and never make it.
As can the prospects you're talking about.
Yeah. No, as you were the 33rd pick.
I understand, but I'm saying if you're not talking about upper echelon prospects, then it's different. That's the phone call, though. They're like, I don't have to do this. I can make my own choice with another first-round pick after the season.
Well, the Guardians, if they don't trade him, are going, thank you, because we didn't have to face you yesterday. They scratched him for no reason.
Right. Although they'd still like him gone, because unless they don't play them again this year.
But still, I mean,
Yeah. But anyway, Kikuchi, we didn't get too much, but that was a lot.
There was 10 teams in on him. We talk about a free agency all the time. If you don't have teams bidding on you, your free agent numbers are not going to go up. Kikuchi, there was 10. I thought Ken may have even said 12 teams were in on Kikuchi. So the bidding has happened for a while now. I said I thought he'd be traded on Wednesday already, because teams were already in trade looking to get him, and then the price just kept going up. And to me, his peripherals are crazy. Like the most ride of any fastball except for Glasnow, and I forget who else. And as far as lefties, he's the 4th highest average velocity of anybody on his fastball in baseball. Who can take advantage of that? The same team that traded for Garrett Cole made him better. The same team that traded for Verlander helped him continue to unlock things. So to me, I think Astros knew what kind of value they were getting. They had to pay a lot, but they knew what they were getting.
Okay, it's a good call. And let's hear from Dana Brown, who is the GM running the front office for the Houston Astros, about that deal.
The market right now is such. So, a lot of these guys are, they have high price tags. In order to get a major league starter with that type of arm, I mean, you're going to have to give up some pretty good players that hurt. And it's pretty difficult to give up young talent. But at the end of the day, we're trying to really stabilize our rotation so that we can get back to the postseason and potentially get deep into the postseason. We see Kikuchi as a guy who could really strike guys out. We see him as a guy who could really log some innings for us, because we're going to need that. And we see him as a guy who could pitch in the postseason with the power that he brings, throwing from 93 to 98. And so this addition for us, we feel like this could be a pretty good addition to get down the stretch.
There you go. So that helps to tell the story of what the market looks like for pitching that you really like, right? And Kikuchi's peripherals and makeup of his stuff is worth more than his ERA right now.
Yeah, but remember, he came in after Barrios last year. Didn't he come in after Barrios against the Twins and give it up?
Yeah, he did. He's been very inconsistent in his career. Yeah. He's definitely put it together much better the last year and a half. I don't understand how there's such a difference between him and Erik Kratz. Did every team know that this was what it was going to cost to get Erik Kratz? Erik Kratz
like a whole lot of
damn good. It's a stuff difference.
I think they see his stuff. I read a whole article on it this morning about how his stuff, talking about how the changeup hasn't increased in velocity, but his velocity his fastball, the separation there is perceived change in velocity into 2 pitches is elite, and they didn't think the Blue Jays were using it. And I think they see Fetty's stuff as serviceable, going to give you innings. But listening to Dana Brown talk, sounds like Kikuchi is, hey, we want to get these guys, we want to get this team to the playoffs and the innings eater, and maybe that's why they're afraid of Flaherty. Maybe there's the held back issue that he had. There were some injury concerns there. Who knows? Who knows why it's him over Flaherty right now?
Yeah.
All right, let me ask you this: who would you rather have right now? One guy's 7-4 with a 3.11 ERA, a WHIP of 1.14. The other guy's 4-9 with a 4.75 and a WHIP of 1.34.
This is why the article intrigued me. I 100% would take Fetty. Fetty has been doing it, but I'm telling you that there is a analytic division that is running every one of these trades and why we're getting value out of them. And they really, really like the value that, or the perceived value, the higher ceiling they feel like that plays in the playoffs, which is punch outs. Give me everything you got all at once. You're done. 4 innings. See ya.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. A way to describe, because this is the difference between us and fans and everyone and how front offices think, whether you believe in it or not. First off, they're paying for future performance, not for the past. If you go to StatCast pages right now for Fetty and Kikuchi, the top is what you're actually bringing to the table this year, and red is good, blue is bad, and it's soaring red for Fetty. And that includes his WAR numbers. Like, he fits everything in terms of performance. Peripherals are the next layer, and they're okay. Kikuchi is the opposite. Super blue for what he's actually done, but pretty red for things like whiff percentage, K percentage, walk percentage, extension.
Yeah, but give me the guy who can get you out and doesn't have the high ERA and the high WHIP.
Hey.
I don't know. I mean, listen, all that stuff is nice and dandy and looks cool on a screen. But I mean, listen, the knock on Eric Fetty that I've heard, and I watched him pitch on Saturday, right, against the Mariners, and I heard it from multiple people, was when he came over from KBO, there was not a out pitch. There wasn't a thing, and they were like worried about him having too many base runners, and he was lucky, right? Well, if you watch Eric Fetty pitch, he's never going to give in. He's going to throw a cutter, a sinker, a changeup, a high fastball, a curveball, slider, sweeper, whatever you want to call it, and he's going to try to hit the edges, right? And if he hits those edges, he's going to give up a lot of soft contact. Now, if he gets in the middle, he's probably going to give up some hits, but he still gives, because he throws balls like a cutter that moves in and a changeup that goes this way and a sweeper that goes like this and a high fastball, right? He gives up a lot of soft contact. Now, I know that people say strikeouts play, but at the same time, if you're the Cardinals and you're like, man, I get Eric Fetty for this year and next year, that's a deal. And we gave up nothing, really? I mean, listen, Tommy M is a nice player, but they
didn't need him.
They haven't used him all year, and they're
he's hurt, but they
but that's what I'm saying.
They have Siani, they have Mason Wynn, like things have changed. They don't need him.
Yes. So, yeah. I mean, that's why it's amazing. I think that's why most people have gotten on Chris Getz and said, man, he should have gotten more for this guy. Because, again, you look at Kikuchi, you compare their stats, Kikuchi's a free agent. Fetty's got another year at $7.5 million.
Yeah.
We're not talking 27.5, $7.5 million for a guy.
Nobody's a starter for $7. Nobody's a starter for $7.5.
Not this quality that Eric Fetty is.
His production has been a 1. I know he's not a 1, but his production this year has been a 1.
He has 7 wins this year.
Well, on the White Sox.
I'm just going to say this. The White Sox have how many wins as a team?
29?
27.
27,
He's got
yeah.
over 30% of their wins as a team. Think about how bad the White Sox are, and think about he has 7 of their 27 wins for the year. Like, he's doing something right with their bullpen. As bad as their bullpen's been,
their defense too. I mean,
their defense, their hitting,
but it's
their hitting numbers are the worst in the league in like every category except for batting average. Seattle's got them.
Yep.
Everything else is White Sox, and he's got 7 wins.
That's why I'm praising the heck out of the Cardinals.
It's amazing
right now.
to me.
They pulled off a great deal, and I want to make sure we highlight it. And he's a strike thrower in a ballpark that will help the cause too, right? They look for a type. John Mozeliak has a type, and Fetty is literally like his dream type this season. So
he's the archetype. I know we have to get to a break, but on the open market, Jacob Junis got $7 million next year, and Fetty is going to get $7.5 next year. It is genius, and they got fleeced.
They did.
I didn't say that.
I did. Erik Kratz.
We will be right back on FT. More breaking news on the way. More guests joining us soon. Here we are. Good combo there. Anyway, we're going to come back and rehash some of the moves while we're waiting for more to happen. And as I've continued to mention, I will keep looking at the questions that are being asked and answering them. I'm trying to get through as many as possible. Dave said, what's the latest on Skubal? We talked a lot about Skubal, not in the past few days, but before that. We had like a good 3 to 5 day run where I felt like it was a little bit of fake news that his name was getting thrown out there. Skubal. I didn't think he was ever going to get traded. I haven't heard much about him since, and I think you can close the book on that one. I thought we all did a good job of going pretty hard at that being BS, and I think that was mission accomplished. I think we should get a pat on the back for that. Some people were like, "Where's Skubal going to go?" I'm like, "Nowhere." And there were some insiders, not the ones that we often talk to, that were throwing some crap out there on a dartboard, and it was severely missing. It's true.
Just wanted to know how expensive their house was. That's it.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I know it's trade deadline day, but I have to ask this just because it was hilarious on Twitter and everywhere the other day. Did you see the Twins when they played the Tigers the other day? I think it was the Twins. Javi Baez had 2 strikes, and the catcher set up like Little League, like outside the left-handed batter's box, and the pitcher threw it to him, and Javi Baez swung at it.
Yes.
That's seriously.
Over.
And they're like, and the comment was like, I think the Twins had a plan for Javi Baez. And I don't know who was, I think Jeffers, he was literally like on the other side of the left. He's like, throw it here.
He wasn't trying. Like it didn't look like a big league game.
No.
I know.
Sorry. I know we're talking about trades, but
I'm glad you brought it up.
Because it was just unbelievably.
This is the time to bring it up during this break.
So we've all swung it. We've all swung at pitches that weren't close, but it was.
But they set up. He's like, okay, let's see how far out we should go. Like, let me go outside of the screen and see.
The umpire, like you could tell he wanted to like pull him back because umpires hate it when you go too far. But it was like he like put his hand out and he just waited to see it because he was completely exposed. He's going to get waffled by a foul ball.
You're right.
Twins made a trade. Breaking news.
Did they?
Neato, gang.
All right. Twins made a trade. So we're coming back for the entire world to watch us. We love the YouTube fam. That's why we're giving you as much as we can right now. Not many like breaks. We'll still chat with you. So keep those questions rolling, comments, the whole deal. We're still going for a while. We'll be right back.
Angels.
TV crowd too.
Come on, Angels.
You can do it. Let us charge the damn mound, powered by MLB 9 Innings 24. Make sure you go get the game, download it. It's free. It's awesome. Go check it out. More on that coming up in a moment. Let's get to trades. First, you want to throw this out there before we go over some of the other big ones? Because some people didn't hear what you just said earlier during the break.
Which part?
We have now accomplished our goal.
The Twins made a trade.
Card. Every single team in the past week.
Finally, the Twins have made a trade. Now, what do they give up for it?
Bingo.
We will find out. But Trevor Richards is acquired by the Minnesota Twins from the Toronto Blue Jays. Blue Jays are giving up bullpen pieces that are, short-term guys, rentals, which makes sense. I'm still going to kind of call them out every time they make a deal because they should be trading guys that are beyond just free agency this year. They should be trading their guys that have 2 years of control. Like, imagine even what they could get for Chris Bassett. Look what you just got for Kikuchi. But anyway, we'll focus on what's here. The Twins get a little bullpen help with Trevor Richards. It's been okay this year.
He's in the book.
I mean, he's not going to be a high leverage arm for them. I mean, the Twins have better options there. Ooh. They still need a starter.
If this is true, this is a big one. Padres got Tanner Scott.
Boom. All right, there we go. Jeff Passan
Scott was waiting for
a deal. Me?
That's what Scott was waiting for. He loves it. He wants to hear a Tanner Scott or a Flaherty name out there.
We just got it. All right, FT fam. The Padres are finalizing a deal to acquire Tanner Scott from the Marlins. Ooh. So the Padres are going to have a ridiculous bullpen. We talked about this the other day, right? So now they have Jason Adam. They add Tanner Scott, give you a little punch from the left side. Estrada's a beast. Robert Suarez is a beast to close things out. Adrian Morejon is pretty damn good. He's not as big of a swing and miss guy, but he's pretty good. There's a lot of variety in your bullpen too. These guys are all pretty different.
Dude, Suarez is filth.
Yeah.
Tanner Scott.
Easy filth.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
This is what you do if you're trying to make the playoffs and win in the playoffs, is you have 5 high leverage arms or whatever the number was.
Yeah. Musgrove's coming back, right? Who knows? Darvish probably won't be back, but Cease dealing.
Bullpen game every day.
Yeah, you got Cease, you got Musgrove. Oof.
Meeting Tanner Scott. I feel like sometimes when you meet guys, your first impression is pretty spot on. I don't think he cares about necessarily being a closer. I just think he cares about going out and absolutely shoving. Like when we talk to him about getting out there and getting in the game, he's like, well, I would just never do that. And I was like, all right, this guy's kind of locked in. So they have 3 all-stars in their bullpen. No, Jason Estrada was not an all-star, but he struck out the world. So they essentially
He's struggled
Yeah.
recently.
I mean,
but when he gets his outs, he gets strikeouts.
Yes.
So
Because
these
he's got
guys,
that splitty, funky thingy-mabobber pitch he throws.
Yeah, he's swinging Miss City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and 99.
Yeah, here's Tanner, and I agree. I mean, we all spent time with him at the All-Star break. This dude is going to take you out. He will thrive in the postseason environment, too. What a pickup for the Padres. I mean, we weren't going to go a whole deadline day without another move by the Padres. But I want to make sure you wrap your head around this, because AJ Preller has caught a lot of flack for the Padres not being a World Series team or not being a consistent winner. Last year was a huge, huge disappointment for them. But what does he do? With a lower payroll, too. It's still a great payroll. He gets a lot of flexibility, but they had to cut things down. So he acquires Dylan Cease right before the season starts, pitching like a 1. He acquires Luis Arraez. They need more contact. Obviously a winning player that I like, above average hitter. He acquires Jason Adam, and now he acquires Tanner Scott. Those are all impact players.
That's good.
It's a good season, man. That's why the Padres do well. It is easy to follow them even during the heartbreak. They try. They bring in big names, and even if they look like a fringe wildcard team, they say, yeah, we do. At the beginning of the season, it's like, I don't know. I don't really know. They look like a 4th place team in the division. Well, 4 impact players later, now what?
When they got Cease, I remember the conversation was, is it the Giants or the Padres? And look at what the Padres already had. All the people that you're just talking about the moves. Like, this team is built to be in the playoffs, and I love the fact that they're doubling and tripling down on that. Because to me, this is what you're doing as a GM. You're putting your team that you built in the right position to succeed.
Can I just say how happy I am about this? Because you know what this could mean for me? Fox has the NL. Dodgers, Padres again, baby. That was such a fun series last time. It was such – remember the goose flew on the field and Padres fans were going crazy? There's a chance now.
Wait,
Dodgers,
can you still do the playoffs?
Now the Padres are going to have to make a move.
Dodgers.
The Dodgers, I feel like now are going to have to do something.
Well, what do you want?
Jack Flaherty.
Yeah, I think they do too. I think that's the guy that they're going after right now. I think there's
don't crochet either, because as a White Sox fan, I'll take all the Dodgers prospects. Give me them all.
I think Flaherty is.
Hey, Friedman, we want 1 through 99. Let's go.
If you're the Dodgers, though, you're not concerned about getting a guy that can be in the rotation for years. You're focused on this season right now. Because also, I mean, there's a ton of dudes hurt. Like, if you look at their rotation for next year, it's not like they're missing guys. Like, they're like, oh my gosh, we're a mess. Like, the Orioles were in that position where you're looking at 2025 and you're like, they need guys for now and for 2025. I mean, Ohtani alone actually is going to be back in the rotation too. We forget about that as long as his rehab keeps going well. But you've got names. You've got Glasnow. You've got Yamamoto. Like, there are good names for 25.
And they have money they always have money to spend.
And they have money. Flaherty is a perfect fit there.
What happens to Bueller?
I think he's got one more.
Free agent.
I'm saying one more rehab start, and then they're hoping to bring him back up.
Yeah, I don't know that Yamamoto's coming back this year.
Really? You don't think he'll
Have you heard about him throwing?
What?
Have you heard about Yamamoto throwing?
Long toss.
Exactly.
They say he's coming back in September. But yeah, I mean, this gives you insurance though if they do that. Anyway,
I mean, obviously Kershaw's back. Glasnow pitch well.
I'm curious to see what the Padres gave up. There's some people in the chat right now that are like, what did the Padres have left to give up? They still have an okay farm system. It is not what it used to be, but it is still, I mean, we'll ask JJ Cooper later. It's still probably mid-tier-ish.
The best GMs at the trade deadlines decimate their farm systems. And you know what? That's okay. Dave Dombrowski, they don't care because they know. Go back all 10 years, the biggest moves. How many of those work out?
Not very many.
I mean, Kyle Glazer, a friend, said 1 out of 5.
That's up from what it used to be.
Yeah, I did a review of, we'll talk about it if we have time later, some of the recent trade deadline moves. Most of the prospects turned into squat. And most of the time, the good ones, the trades, were more of like the sneaky trades where you're like, oh, remember when the Yanks got Joey Gallo for a minute? Josh Smith was one of the guys in that deal back. Ezekiel Duran, right? Like that wasn't a trade where you're like, oh my gosh, they got fleeced. They gave up so many big prospects, but they did end up getting a really nice return in a deal like that. All right, let's do two more really quick to finish this segment. Can we show that notable trades board? And then we'll talk to JJ Cooper about the prospect return. Because we haven't gotten to these, we probably won't. We talked about Frankie Montas going to Milwaukee, Ahmed Rosario to the Dodgers, which is, some versatility and depth. But here's 2 that we didn't get to, if you want to chime in on these. Lane Thomas going to the Cleveland Guardians yesterday, and Justin Turner landing with Seattle to do a little probably first base and DH action for the Mariners as they continue to do a full-on extreme makeover to their lineup. Quick thoughts from each of you on that. I mean, good pickup for Cleveland, too. They haven't been hitting much
I love
lately.
the Lane Thomas for Cleveland.
Me
Justin
too.
Turner, veteran guy to send out to Seattle. He's not tearing the cover off the ball. They need power. He's not going to bring much of that, but he's a great clubhouse guy. But I mean, he goes from Toronto to Seattle. That's about as far as you can get from each other.
Tough travel, yes. But I love the Turner because he's not hitting a lot of power, whether that's Toronto's fault, whether he's aging out, which I don't agree with. His own base percentage is going to look like he is Babe Ruth. He's going to look like Barry Bonds in that lineup. He's got a 350 on base percentage. That's what this team needs. Somebody to look at and be like, wow, why didn't he swing at that pitch? Would have been a good time to just swing and miss. So JT, I think he brings a little bit here. As much as I really like Lane Thomas, I just think they're a locomotive anyway. But I think Justin Turner going to the Mariners is a nice move for the Mariners.
Yeah, I agree. They need a veteran presence like that to help kind of push things forward. Plus, if they do make the playoffs, he's had some good success there too. He's been pretty clutch in his postseason career. Anyway, thanks to MLB 9 Innings for powering that segment. Here's a quick look at the game.
Wow, not bad for only one MVP. Here's how a 3-time winner does it.
That's cute. Call me when you get to 6:30.
Whatever.
Love that. Trout and Griffey. Go scan the QR code, download MLB 9 Innings 24 while we're chatting. It's a free game. Get the best baseball game in the palm of your hands. All the latest from the 2024 season. You saw some of the player cards, which you can acquire if you play MLB 9 Innings 24. Be right back. On the guest list coming up, JJ Cooper on all the prospects coming back to your favorite or maybe least favorite teams. Susan Slusser on the Giants and the A's. Bob Nightingale is scheduled to join us in the next hour as well. All right, what's up, FT fam? We are now seeing the return for the Miami Marlins in that Padres deal. So give us 2 minutes. If you're watching on YouTube right now, this is the spot. I know some of you are on Twitter too, but on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to FT. Type in Foul Territory wherever you get your podcasts. We have a ton of other shows like Fair Territory. Ken Rosenthal is going to be back on Thursday to recap everything, 12:30 Eastern time. But we are on 1 to 3 Eastern every single day. We answer your questions. We hang out in the chat. We have a good time. So I'll answer 1 or 2 questions right now with AJ and Kratz while we have a second, and then we'll come back with JJ Cooper from Baseball America. Austin, do you see the Yankees getting rid of Gleyber Torres?
No.
Sorry, no. I think there's too much upside, and I think there's what can you add in there that can beat that upside possibility of what he could do.
Agreed. Also not cheap. So most teams, I don't think there's a ton of spots that want to take on that kind of salary. Again, you have to bring it up because it's a thing, and the Yankees are not eating money on that last year of that arbitration deal, So I'm going to say no. Boone29, any chance the Mariners go after Ryan Mountcastle? Didn't one of you bring that name up for the M's? Although Kratz says everybody's going to the Mariners.
I say anybody that has, a new stock of bats in and a pulse I think would be a help.
Not a clever name.
Not anymore. Not after Turner. Not after Turner.
Not after Turner.
Got it.
Not a clever name on YouTube. Tyler Anderson to the Mets ? Well, no, they got Blackburn, and we're going to talk about that acquisition. And I don't know what the heck the Angels are doing. If they don't trade Tyler Anderson in this market, they're making a massive mistake. And it sounds like
don't they seem to do that every year, though?
They do it every year. They think next year's the year. And it sounds like it must be the owner again, Artie Moreno, not giving them permission, because Luis Rengifo was highly coveted. And I don't know what's going on, but his name hasn't popped up too much in any report.
Those comments scared me that they weren't going to make the move that you'd think they were going to make. It scared me when I read it.
What a disaster. All right, we're coming right back with JJ Cooper from Baseball America to go over that return for the Marlins with the Padres acquiring Tanner Scott, and we'll get some other returns. We can definitely debate what's going on with Kikuchi versus Fetty a little bit with him too. We're back on Foul Territory. We're live all day long here covering the trade deadline. JJ Cooper from Baseball America joining us, and he is going to be one of the stars of one of our shows later on, 6:30 Eastern time. So right after our show on YouTube, Baseball America will pop up with our weekly show Hot Sheet at a special time to go over all the prospect returns. JJ, great to see you. So we'll cover some of that now, and then we'll do the full-on review a little bit later on. I did want to start here because we talked about the tweet that BA put out there, or maybe in our YouTube chat. No top 100 prospects yet have been traded on Baseball America's list. One person was like, that's not true. Dylan Lesko got traded. I'm like, I don't think he's in their top 100 anymore. I think he fell off.
No, I mean, Dylan Lesko's not only not in the top 100, he's not just on the edge either. I mean, if you were talking about guys on the edge, Agustin Ramirez, who the Yankees traded last week, he's on the edge. You could make a top 100 argument for him. There are a couple others. Jake Bloss, you could make an argument. Connor Norby's not a top 100 guy now, but he's top 100 adjacent. But there are Robbie Snelling, who we just saw in this Marlins trade, is a guy who was in the top 100, but we still haven't seen a guy who's actually currently in the top 100 traded in any of these deals. It is kind of crazy that we're talking about the high price, and I do agree that there's been a high price in a lot of these deals, but at the same time, we are seeing teams hold on to their best prospects in every one of these moves.
All right, so let's go over the latest move, and it's quite a return in terms of how many names are going back to the Miami Marlins in this San Diego Padres acquisition of Tanner Scott. It is, let's see here, I got to get the names ready. Or if you have them, you can just run through them better than
Robbie
I can.
Snelling, Adam Mazur. I don't have it all in front of me. Graham Pauley. I think I might be forgetting one. But Snelling was our Baseball America minor league pitcher of the year last year. Great year last year in 2023. And not so great a year in 2024. Kind of is backed up. Stuff is backed up a little bit. Obviously, it's kind of a buy low kind of situation for the Marlins. But this is a guy who has been a premium prospect. So that's, kind of interesting. Mazur and Pauley, both are guys who have potential. But again, we're not talking about guys who are having great years in both cases. We're not talking about guys who it's kind of a volume trade in some ways. If you have this many guys going who have shown flashes, you kind of hope that you're going to pop on a couple of these, but it's not something where any of these is a slam dunk top 50, top 75 prospect in the game.
And Jay Bashir, that's the last one. Sorry, Kratz. Jay Bashir's is the last one.
You're good. Maybe you said it and I missed it because I'm trying to follow a bunch of different things. where's the Padres minor league system at? Because we're seeing, you just said number 3. Okay. All right. That's 3, 4, and 6 and 29th. So it's a hall of mediocrity.
So the Padres, give them all kind of credit. They have done an amazing job over the last few years of continually restocking as they keep trading away talent, over and over. I mean, we talk about that 2021 draft is an incredible draft, but it's an incredible draft where James Wood is now a National, Robert Gasser is now a Brewer, and River Ryan is now a Dodger. So they've done this where they draft really good talent and then they trade it away in moves. But this is the year where kind of a lot of that bill seems to be coming due. Ethan Salas is their best prospect, but he's hitting 200 in high A. He's really young, but you can't make a catcher who's hitting 200 in high A the cornerstone of a massive deal, even if he is younger than a lot of draftees in next year's draft. Leo DeVries is probably the one guy that their top international signing this year has been really good lately. That's one that is notable. But get past that, Snelling, Mazur, a lot of these guys haven't had great years. Talked to a couple of scouts about the Padres system because I did our midseason update on them, and by the time you get to about 15 on this list, you really start running out of guys. And when you look at it and say, who is the Padre other than DeVries who's had a good year in the minors, you kind of struggle to come up with a whole lot of names. So it is something where the Padres still managed to make a pretty impactful move, but this is from a system that's not as good as it used to be.
JJ, I do have a question because you mentioned Salas. That would be the name everyone talks about, but I just looked up his numbers. I didn't realize they were that bad. I mean, 197, 2, 576 OPS, and this is in
He's 18, though.
18 in what league's he in?
Midwest.
I played in that league at 18. I didn't hit that bad.
Well, I think
when you were there, it was the Midwest League was low A. Now it's high A, so it's one level.
All right. Oh, okay. My bad, JJ. Sorry. The next year I went to the next year. Sorry. I mean, come on. But still, for all the hype this guy got, and again, I'm not knocking on Ethan Salas, but damn. I mean, I expected to see a 240-ish, with at least a 700 OPS.
That's my point. You can't make that a cornerstone of a trade. If you're the GM saying, we got Ethan Salas back, and it's this guy's really young, and then you say, well, how's he hitting? It's he's not hitting this year, but he's really young. He's a good catcher defensively. It's not just it's kind of not a guy that's the cornerstone of a trade. And by the way, if you're the Padres trading him right now, if they offer him in a trade, you probably get scared right away because you're wait a second. This guy's clearly we're buying low on this guy because he's not hitting. So why are they offering him? So, yeah, I don't think the Padres have a whole lot to offer there, especially with a guy like Ethan Salas. You want to hold and see if he can bounce back from what's been a pretty disappointing year.
All right, JJ, as the resident White Sox ex-employee, what did they get back? What did they get back? The two guys that they got back, because nobody seems that high on them, and for give up 3 proven big leaguers, it seems like an odd return.
Yeah, I didn't say future manager because I saw you said that. I saw what you said yesterday on FT. But
you know what's funny though is even though I said that, people were like, "He's lying."
Yeah,
he's totally
liar.
Lying. Maybe I should play poker.
Maybe future owner. Who knows?
But no. The thing I think that complicated it is it was a 3-player deal, but let's just be honest. Tommy Pham doesn't have a whole lot of value in trade. If he did, he wouldn't have been available to sign with the White Sox on a minor league deal before the season. So, and Michael Kopech, as impressive as he's been, as hard as he's thrown, they're selling kind of low on him too. He really struggled last year, led the AL in walks. He struggled this year in the pen. The move to the pen hasn't really helped a ton. So those are 2 players that they traded that didn't have I think a ton of trade value. It is fair to say that when you look at Fetty and you look at the price of what they got for Fetty, the return in comparison to say Kikuchi, compared to what Trevor Rogers just got today, that seems a little low, especially because Fetty has a very reasonable deal next year. A lot of this depends on Miguel Vargas. Miguel Vargas was a top 100 prospect who's kind of bounced on and off the Dodgers roster the last couple of years. He hasn't shown enough at the plate to where they can comfortably just say, you're our guy. But it is the Dodgers. I mean, that was kind of true of Michael Busch who was traded to the Cubs this year. And Michael Busch has had a very solid year for the Cubs, having been freed from kind of the logjam that is, often the case in LA. So you're hoping for that from Vargas, and the other two guys they got, Albertus and Alexander Albertus and Gerald Perez, are a pair of guys who high ceiling, really far away. You kind of that's where you're hoping that you put all your roulette chips on on 30 on 28, and you see if it hits. If it does, you're really going to pay off. But if you told me that both of those guys end up kind of flaming out along the way, that's often what happens to these guys in trades. So it's a lot about depending on whether Miguel Vargas blossoms in Chicago with the White Sox or not. The kind of frightening thing if you're a White Sox fan is there's not a whole lot else there, especially if, we'll see what happens with Crochet. But other than that, this is going to be a long slog. And I don't think that this trade has done a whole lot to really kind of change that in any way.
Yeah. And if the Dodgers were okay giving him up, I mean, I don't know. They never give up their blue chippers. I'm just saying, go back in the past and look at who have been superstars for them.
Well, they will. They'll give them up for Max Scherzer and Trey Turner. Keibert Ruiz.
Yeah.
Hey, Jordan Alvarez.
Jordan Alvarez for Josh Fields.
That was more of an accident. Like,
oh, don't do that, Scott.
O'Neal Cruz.
No. Or who?
O'Neal Cruz.
Understand, but for a top end trade, wait, a top end trade, they circle their 3 or 4 guys and they usually hug them tightly, right? Jordan Alvarez was not a top prospect. The Astros identified a high upside player kind of before he blossomed, right?
But that's what I'm saying. That's what you're hoping. If you're the White Sox, your best hope here is that Gerald Perez or Alexander Albertus becomes one of those guys. Because we are talking about guys who are 3-4 years away from the big leagues, and you are taking that big swing. Now, most of the time you're going to whiff on that, but once every 3-4 years, someone lands a Jordan Alvarez, someone lands an O'Neal Cruz. And if you're going to be picking from the high ceiling, high risk player pool, picking from the Dodgers is about as good as you can get, because no one does a better job of kind of finding and adding those guys, especially on the international market.
That's a good call. Well, all of this and much more with JJ coming up. We'll break down that Astros Blue Jays trade and anything else that goes down in the next couple hours. We'll talk to JJ on Baseball America Hot Sheet on the Baseball America YouTube channel. It'll run right after this show if you're watching on YouTube. JJ, thank you very much. We'll talk soon.
See you in a few.
Yes, see you in a few. And we're coming back with Susan Slusser, who covers the A's and the Giants as well as anyone. Got to figure out what each team's doing. The return for the A's and Giants buying, selling, Snell, I don't know. Hey, FT fam, we're back. Anthony Rendon is on the injured list.
First of all, before we dig into Anthony Rendon going in the IL, how the hell does JJ Cooper remember who the heck all these people are? He's rattling off like the 35th best prospect from the Nationals organization. He's like, remember that time when Erik Kratz got traded for some gum and Scott Braun got traded for nothing? They actually paid to take him. Like, you're like, how the heck does he remember all this stuff?
He's good and he's engaged too. Like talking to him, doing the futures game stuff with him, he gets it. Like he's like, oh yeah, but he had a tough June, and I'm like, what? How can you remember that?
He's incredible. I mean, you see where his command center is when he just came on. He's just parked there all day, watching video, watching minor league games, watching major league games. He knows what's going on in the bigs too. Anyway, while we have a quick minute, because I don't know if we'll have a ton of time for this unless they really do stand pat on trade deadline day. Anthony Rendon to the injured list. Again, I don't think he's hit a homer in over a year. Lower back inflammation. Same, bro.
Yeah, but the bigger thing is Rengifo and Ward were in the lineup.
Yeah. So to me, that probably means they're playing. I mean, you could put them in a lineup and then trade them. But
you ever been pulled out of the lineup, AJ?
Me?
Yeah.
For what?
Trade.
To be traded.
I was only traded in the offseason.
Right. So then
no.
Only
offseason. It's a cool feeling. You're in the hot tub, and they're like, hey, you're down. I was walking up to the batter's box, and my manager was like, no, you're not taking this at bat. Go sit in the dugout. I was like,
Here's
all
my
right,
thing.
I'm used to
I got told that, but usually it was because I was getting pinch hit for.
that.
But here's my thing. The Angels have just destroyed themselves deadline after deadline, and now this is a time when they obviously should be selling. It's really in front of your face, and they're like thinking about 2025, which cool. So are all of us. But I mean, the fact that Rengifo and Anderson might not get traded is a travesty.
Drury.
Tyler Anderson.
That's what I said. Tyler Anderson and Rengifo. Those are the two.
Ward too, though. Could have
Ward, yes. I can see teams being like he hasn't hit since May or whatever, and the price tag being low, and he does have an extra year. He's under control for 2 years after this. But Rengifo and Anderson are 1 year after this. They're never going to be higher in stock in value. I'm telling you. That one hurts. So anyway, we're coming right back with Susan Slusser to talk about the state of the Giants. And we are back on with Susan Slusser right now, joining us to go over what the heck the San Francisco Giants are doing. And you can follow her at her name, Susan Slusser, to get more info on her coverage. So let's get right to it.
Hold
Susan.
on. You'll always be an A's beat writer to me, Susan. I don't care what you do.
I know. It's we go back. We go back a long way.
Yes.
Exactly. No, I feel the same way. I've talked to Susan in her A's days. San Francisco Chronicle beat reporter, though, right now. Let's get to the Giants first, okay? Because they are very interesting. What was your reaction to the Jorge Soler move yesterday and then Alex Cobb being followed up, and what could be next over this next hour?
Well, they're in a weird sort of sell and maybe buy mode. When I was talking to people with the team last night, there were indications that what they're really looking for is a defensive center fielder. So look for that. That might still be something that happens. Clearly, that last night was a little bit of a salary dump. Clears essentially $30 million off their payroll. But what really interested me with that move and then with the Cobb move today is they're taking care to move their veteran players to spots they actually want to go to. Yeah, Soler and Luke Jackson go back to Atlanta. Stephen Vogt told me that Alex Cobb is the very first person he ever met in pro ball. They're longtime friends. That's a team that's got a chance to do some fun things in the postseason. So it's a great landing spot for him in what might be the last year of his career. They did the same thing with Mitch Haniger, obviously, over the offseason. So that's kind of interesting when they're making these moves to either clear spots for like Hayden Birdsong today or to clear a little payroll. They're doing it with a little bit of mindfulness, which is interesting.
But what are they doing? I mean, we know where Alex Cobb went. We know where Soler went. What are they doing? Did they get below the number? Because I'd read about the number to luxury tax threshold. Are they then adding a center fielder that plays defense?
Yeah, I don't think that they care about necessarily the luxury tax. I don't think this is a move that came from ownership or anything. I think this helps them when it comes to doing things like maybe making other acquisitions or looking at things in the offseason. It's sort of an incremental salary dump. And today's was not a salary dump with Alex Cobb. That was clearly to open a spot. And honestly, I would say Soler might be the same thing if they wind up going with Marco Luciano, maybe a Luciano Conforto combo in the DH spot. That move was mostly to open up something for Luciano, and Luke Jackson just hasn't been effective. Soler was really starting to warm up, but it just was a little bit too little, too late. It was basically the last 10 games he was hitting something like 359 with two or three homers. 12 homers on the year. I think they were getting less production from the DH spot than any other team in the league. So it makes sense for a lot of reasons, but their focus, if they do acquire, is on an outfielder, particularly a good defensive outfielder, mostly so they can get Elliot Ramos over to a corner. If not, I think they wind up with Yastrzemski maybe back in center, and they love him in right.
Susan, I think there's frustration from fans that can say, you know what, I understand Soler, I understand Cobb, etc. But if you are trying to talk us into the fact that you aren't selling, then why isn't this team buying? Is it because they're not in a good enough place, there's not a strong enough percentage chance of them making the playoffs. Like, I know you mentioned center field defense. If you were GM and you had, no rules, right? You could do whatever you want. There's no payroll issues or anything else. And you're going for it because you definitely went for it in the offseason. I give them praise for some of what they did. What should the Giants be doing this week and obviously today up against the trade deadline? Like, there's no way that this was the perfect team.
Yeah, they need a bat. And honestly, with that DH spot open, they could kind of look anywhere for that. They could look any position, right? And sort of fill in. It doesn't necessarily have to be a defensive-minded center fielder if they really are going for it. But, I don't think Robert is going to be available. Mike Trout, let's go for Mike Trout. We've thrown that name out here and there over the years. I could see that. The Angels don't seem to be doing all that much, so do that. Look, I think that they just need a bat because they really, really like that rotation they have, and that's why the emphasis on defense. But to me, the biggest question that they have is offense, and that has been the case all year long.
So I like what you're saying, and I'm looking at this team versus the Padres. I mean, they're not super far away from each other, right? They're, I think, 4 games behind the Padres and maybe 3.5 behind the Diamondbacks right now. So if you're San Francisco and you're trying to tell fans, like, you're in this, what's the state of their farm system? Like, why couldn't they pull off a Luis Robert and a Brent Rooker or a Josh Bell, who actually basically just cost money, like, to fill those 2 spots? And maybe they do it in the next hour, but honestly, I kind of doubt it. That's the problem I think some fans are having right now, to understand, like, okay, that's fine. You want to sell some of these guys, but how are you convincing me that this is a playoff team after you've been building up for the last 4 years, aside from the outlier season a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I don't think that they saw Bell necessarily as a fit for them. I think they thought, if they're going strictly for bats, I think they think there's probably better out there. Heck, why not go out and get Vlad Guerrero? And again, a player has to be available. So if the White Sox aren't making Robert, available, then there's not that much they can do. So I think they're checking all the boxes, but they'll probably wind up with like a Kevin Kiermaier type. That's probably the kind of guy they have in mind when they're talking about defense first center fielder. And they're in that middle ground, right? Are they potentially a playoff team? Sure, with that rotation. And if they got in, they could do some damage. They also could miss out. Do you want to throw a bunch of prospects? And they do have a lot of starting pitching in the upper levels. It goes beyond Birdsong. They've got guys like Carson Whisenhunt, and they've got Mason Black. They've got some decent outfielders that they could trade. But I think they probably would like to hang on to those guys and finesse a way to make the playoffs and then let the rotation take over. That's kind of what I'm seeing here. I don't think that they're going to put together some sort of mass trade for Vladdy or Trout.
Okay, so when are the Giants going to strike? Because they've tried in the off seasons to get a star, and Susan, they need a star. Like Blake Snell, nice, not an everyday guy, right? They need to go and get a free agent this year if they're not going to trade for him. So are they going to do that? And then the next question, probably actually before we even get to that, is Farhan on the hot seat? Because he's kind of went through the Gabe Kapler, Platoony, whatever they were doing, and then he's like, all right, we're going to get Snell, Soler, all these guys, Chapman, to like not have to do that. And now they're kind of back to square one. So is he on the hot seat? And then will they be able to get the stars they need?
I think he is a little bit on the hot seat. Every time I talk to ownership, they express their satisfaction with the job he's doing. He obviously got a contract extension when the team hired Bob Melvin to match Melvin's. Now, teams can, of course, absorb contracts if they decide to make a move. The Giants have plenty of money. I think in all of these talks, players, trades, hirings, firings, I don't think money is the uppermost concern for them. But yeah, I think the Giants ownership wants to go back to the playoffs and to do it sooner than later. The one thing I will say is the Giants have kind of quietly done some nice things with some of their top prospects and even guys who weren't considered top prospects that are starting to remind people of the way things were shaping up before their big run in the early 2010s. that Tyler Fitzgerald looks like a real find at short. Obviously, they've got Birdsong now in the rotation and looking phenomenal. They've got, some pitchers coming. They've got Patrick Bailey behind the plate. Elliot Ramos has come on. They've got potentially Luciano, potentially Luis Matos as nice pieces, all coming up for the system. So maybe they think that that's enough. Most of it, not all of that, was on Bobby Evans' watch and not Farhan Zaidi's, but some of it has been Zaidi, including Patrick Bailey and Tyler Fitzgerald. So I think that he probably gets in a wait and see through this year. Definitely, if he makes it through this year, he is 100% on the hot seat next year.
Susan, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate the time. Of course, you can follow Susan at Susan Slusser and check out all her work in the San Francisco Chronicle.
Susan, would you like to see me as a manager? Would you like to cover me?
Oh my God, you would be so much fun. You would be absolutely. Yeah, I think I have to think we would probably fight a lot, but I would like that.
No, that's good. I can fight with you and still get along with you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have no problem with that.
I feel like if you don't,
we would have many fun disagreements.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah, that's part of it. Susan, you're the best. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
That's Susan Slusser joining us. And then up next, Eno Sarris is about to break down some of these moves. You need a little laugh.
Oh, man.
Hey, FT fam. All right, we're still going strong. Eno Sarris is going to join us very soon. We're going to get into it with him. I always enjoy getting his insight and then having you guys kind of bounce your takes off of what Eno's seeing. He's very analytical. So I listen to a lot of what he does podcast-wise and read what he puts out there in The Athletic. Anyway, let me go back to the question bank here that we're getting from anyone. Joseph, any chance the Phillies sneak in on Blake Snell? I think they need one more starter.
No.
That's an easy one. Travis, any chance the Astros are making any more moves?
Yandy
Diaz would be awesome for them. I would love to see that. I don't know how they're feeling about their prospect cupboard right now, but that would be the issue to see if they match up.
I mean, Dana Brown doesn't care. Listen, their window's closing. They're going for it. I love it.
He's got the Dave Dombrowski vibe. Right?
I love it. Same as AJ Preller. Go for it.
Yep.
Go for
it. One fan, I forget who it was, said, "What's the clubhouse like right now for players?"
They just you look at the TV.
Yeah, I mean,
you have TV.
It's overrated though. Are you guys going in like normal day?
Yeah.
There are certain guys that knew they were on the hot seat. The only time Kratz asked me what it was like to get traded, the only time I was close to getting traded, well, there was really two times. Once when I was with the Braves at the end of my career, and they came up to me and they said, "Hey, would you mind getting traded?" I said, "As long as it wasn't to Seattle." And then I heard that I was going to get traded to Seattle, and they actually nixed it for me, which is awesome.
That is awesome.
And the other time was because I was in Atlanta, and I didn't want to go to Seattle. But the other time was when I was right before I was about to get 10-5. When I was with the White Sox, there was people saying, you got a chance to be traded here. And then once I hit it, I was 10-5. I was like, you can't trade me now.
10-5 for anyone unaware. 10 years in the bigs, 5 years with one particular team means you cannot be traded without permission of that player.
Yeah, and listen, people know who are going to get traded, right? Most guys are like, okay, I got a shot to be traded.
Mm-hmm.
So, and Kratz knows, the guys that are on the edge are like, oh man, but it used to be the players always found out first before it leaked. Now it leaks before the players find out, which is crazy. And I told the story when I was with the Cardinals.
Oh, Dotel?
No, Joe Kelly.
Oh.
I'm laying on the training table. Joe Kelly's next to me. My agent calls his lackey because he's traded. I'm like, oh, boy. Whoops.
Yeah. All right, we'll be right back. Under an hour to go until the trade deadline is over. You can't trade major league players after that. Eno Sarris from The Athletic joining us right now. Also check out his podcast, Rates and Barrels. I'm an avid fan and avid reader of all your work, as I always tell you. Eno, great to have you. So I'm going to start big picture with you. Favorite or least favorite trade that you've seen thus far? And you can kind of go in any direction with this one, like a player that you're not as high on or super high on, and you're like, wow, what a pickup for this team.
Yeah, I guess it's easier for me to think about them like next to each other. So like comparable trades that I like better than the other. So I kind of like the Red Sox getting Lucas Sims and maybe paying a little bit less than the Padres paid for Tanner Scott. I've got a stuff number, and Lucas Sims was like the second best rental reliever available, according to his stuff. And Scott was first, but the Padres gave up a lot of different guys. I don't know if they'll all turn out, but they gave up a lot of arms to get Tanner Scott, who was obviously at the top of that market. So I kind of like the Lucas Sims deal better. It's kind of sneaky good. I think a lot of hate went towards the Astros, giving up Joey Loperfido for Yusei Kikuchi, but I had Yusei Kikuchi as one of the best available arms, maybe the second best if Skubal and Crochet don't go. He throws really hard with really excellent ride, or he throws a 90-mile-an-hour slider. He basically has a lot of similarities to Tyler Glasnow in terms of stuff, and he's a lefty. So I really like that. On the opposite end, the Orioles do a lot of things I like. I like the Zach Eflin trade. I didn't like the Rogers trade. They trade for a lefty in Miami that is down to 91 miles an hour. He was 95 at his peak. I know he's had an okay run recently, but the strikeout and walk rates aren't good. And they gave up Connor Norby and Kyle Stowers. I don't know if they're going to be great, but I think those are guys who are at least, everyday regulars. So just generally, I like what the Marlins have done. They got a lot of players. They got a lot of players who are close to the big leagues. They've remade their lineup to some extent. So they're going to have Davidos de los Santos, who hits tanks. They're going to have him at first, today because Josh Bell is gone. They're going to have Norby, Stowers, Robbie Snelling might be close. They got in the Padres deal. There's a lot of close and ready players that they got in the deals today. So I generally like what the Marlins did.
Okay, then I have to ask, because we kind of had this argument earlier. You love Kikuchi so much. He's got a 4.75 ERA. He's 4-9 this year. Records don't matter. I know Scott hates wins. He loves losing. But Eric Fetty, 7-4 on the worst team possibly of all time, and barely a 3 ERA. But people are like, oh, Kikuchi's more valuable than Fetty. Well, Kikuchi's a free agent. Yeah, he has better stuff. Whoop-de-doo. Better stuff doesn't always equal better results. And then, Fetty you get an extra year for. So it's like, why is Kikuchi ranked so high if the numbers don't match up? And don't say he doesn't, he throws in a pitcher's park because a hitter's park because Toronto now is a pitcher's park.
Yeah, I'll have to say I don't know exactly why. I mean, last year, Kikuchi showed his promise, I think, and was really excellent. This year, he's got a BABIP that's 340. It means 34% of his balls in play have been hits. That Toronto defense is rated highly. So that number should be 30%, should be lower than that. So I don't really know why. I'll have to say this. He does not have great command. And Fetty might have better command. But, Kikuchi's fastball is so many miles better than Fetty's. And I just think that Fetty will be exposed a little bit when it comes to playoff time and some better competition at times. That division is not the best division in baseball. And so I just, I know it's a 4.7 ERA, but ERA itself is not predictive either. And so I would just say that I like to look at the underlying numbers. And Kikuchi strikes out way more batters than Fetty and has a way better fastball.
I want to take you to hitting for a moment. What do you think about the Mariners and what they've done with the Justin Turner edition and Randy Arozarena, and also just why the Mariners have been such a disaster on offense this season? The guy sitting next to me says the ballpark excuse, it's there, but it's way overrated. He's like, they can't blame everything on a damn batter's eye in Seattle. Some dudes can hit there. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to go there, and it's fair to say maybe that's not everything, but in particular for right-handers, and we had Teoscar Hernandez leave and say I couldn't see the thing straight, and I was just there. on vacation last week, and I saw it, and it is the batter's eye is not perpendicular to the plate. So it's really, really bizarre. You see it as soon as you're behind home plate. I don't know, what you've seen is guys that haven't struck out as much in the past go there and strike out. And we know that right-handed strikeouts are augmented by that park more than any other park in baseball. And so I kind of think it is the park, but you also see them getting guys like Mitch Garver, who has had an up and down career. So maybe he's just an every other year guy. I don't know. Jorge Polanco was better recently, but earlier in his career didn't have this power. So they haven't been sort of before Randy Arozarena. They haven't been shopping in a bin where the guy has just been like, we know he's good. It's been like, we think he's good. We think he's going to work, and it hasn't worked out. I think the Randy Arozarena trade is a little bit different because this guy he struggled a little bit the first 2 months of the season. Since then, he's hit 300 with power and speed, and he's been able to make contact in that park in the past. I think that was a big deal for them to go get him. And Turner is a guy who has made contact his whole career. And strikeouts have really been the problem for Seattle. They strike out 27% of the time. It's like second or third worst in baseball. This is after the offseason. They said, we want to strike out less. And they tried to acquire people that strike out less. So I think the Arozarena and Turner trades, those are good veterans with long track records, but also they're right-handers who don't strike out as much. And weirdly, I know it's just one or two players, but they've been scoring a lot better since they got those two guys. And maybe there's a bit of a mindset where it's like, okay, he went and got players for us. He cares about us. Our GM cares about us, and he believes in us. And they sort of turn it around. I saw the game where they struggled to play one run after they got the bases loaded like 3 times. So it seems to be like a kind of a quick turnaround with those two guys in the lineup.
Before I ask my question, Scott is so mad that you actually fixed your hair today, and it looks so much better than his. Like, yours is nice.
You don't like my new dude?
He's got better hair than me, dude.
Not today he doesn't. Not today he doesn't.
And me got the curls.
I know, but his look nice because they're freshly
like my curls?
Producted. Yours are just there today.
I like it. It's the trade deadline look.
Scott could outlift me too, dude.
Well, I mean, but there's chemicals involved there.
There's a massive difference in IQ. Chemicals.
PD usage.
I'm not
there yet. Thank you. There's no chemicals in that.
Okay. Anyway, so I want to ask about the Padres because they seem to be, giving up everybody, right? AJ Preller just doesn't care. He's like, we're trying to win. Are they a serious contender now to make a deep run like they did 2 years ago when they beat the Dodgers, made the LCS, obviously lost, but to the Phillies? But with their bullpen, their starting lineup, especially getting, if Musgrove comes back, if Darvish ever comes back, can they make a deep run into this postseason?
Yeah, I mean, Dylan Cease, I think, is an ace's ace. I mean, I think he's up there with anybody. You've seen some great starts from him. He can go out there and go toe-to-toe with any number one, I think. I mean, the command's not always there, so maybe he won't win that one. But I think he's the number one. You've got these other guys that are credible 2s and 3s. I think Darvish is going to come back. I think it's a delicate matter. But, Musgrove, I haven't seen the same stuff since he got injured in Mexico City last year. And so I want to see a little bit more, but he can always bend the ball. He's a really good spinner. So I think that's a really good rotation. The bullpen now is really good. I think one of the biggest keys this year has actually been Jackson Merrill. And that's funny to say because he's the one guy who stayed. I mean, they traded away everybody and they kept Jackson Merrill. And, there's questions. Does he have enough power? Does he have enough power? Well, he has enough power, but he also makes a ton of contact and plays really good center field. So that has helped them defensively up the middle. And it's also given them, along with Xander Bogaerts, when he's healthy, like a different sort of look to the lineup. They got Manny and Tatis for the big power, but they got Bogaerts and Merrill to move the lineup along with Cronenworth. So I really like the kind of diversity of that lineup. It's not just all, sometimes the Twins can get kind of, we all are swinging for the fences and we strike out a little bit. Certain teams can kind of get one-dimensional. This is a team that kind of does all things in different times. And I think they can. It's a good team. They're up against a good divisional opponent, but I think they'll get a wild card and get in there. And we've seen what wild cards can do in the postseason.
I'm going to get myself in trouble, but just like a 20-second answer, because I just wanted to get this one. It's a kind of a random name nationally, but it's a really good one. Lucas Erceg. Are you high on him? Can he, pitch the 7th or 8th for the Royals if they're in the playoffs?
Yeah, one of the funny things is he's older, so you might look at his age on his paper and say, "Oh well, how good is he? How good is he going to be?" He's a fresh arm. I mean, he hasn't been throwing for that long. He's got this great story. He had some troubles with drinking at Cal, and he ended up at Menlo College with Jason Ochard, who's now the director of hitting for Boston Red Sox. He ended up being drafted in the third round by the Brewers as a hitter. Hit 35 tanks one year in the minor leagues. Stalled out as a hitter. Just turned to a reliever. He's like 3 years into relieving, and he's just finding the feel for his pitches. So he throws really hard, and he's finding a feel for his pitches. He actually has 3 pitches. It wouldn't be the weirdest thing in the world for him to end up starting 2 or 3 years from now. I mean, that's the kind of career, the kind of story he's had, that, all things are possible. And I'm so happy for him as a person, for all the things he's overcome. And that's now a really good bullpen in terms of stuff. They got Hunter Harvey, James MacArthur, and Lucas Urseg in the back there. Those are 3 really legit arms with high-end stuff. That's a new thing in Kansas City recently. That's kind of a callback to their best years, and I think that'll serve them well.
Yeah, Kelvin Herrera, Wade Davis, Greg Holland. It's back, baby. Thank you so much for joining us. I know you got your show coming up. Rates and Barrels, make sure you check it out. Our guy Trevor May, who we both love, is on your show as well coming up. So we'll be listening. I'll catch that afterward and check out his articles in The Athletic. Thank you, Eno.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you. That's Eno Sarris from The Athletic. He'll be right back, and we're going to talk to Michael Schwab about the Astros returns. All right, let's do a little speed round here while we have a couple minutes. Wink, doesn't Snell to the O's make a lot of sense, especially with Burns not 100% to be back next year? Yeah, I would say there's a pretty good chance Corbin Burns is not going to sign with the Baltimore Orioles.
Maybe, though. Rubenstein, that could be his first big move.
It could be. It would be awesome if that's the case. But
extension.
What extension?
That's his first big move. Extending one of the young guys.
Yeah, Adley, Gunnar.
That's his first
and
move.
Hey, he made a big move. He took on significant money just now in Zach Eflin that the old ownership group, John Angelos, would never, ever do. Zach Eflin is due $18 million next year. That alone has to do with getting a new ownership group. That's why we were all so big on that change at the time. We were like, this can help you win a World Series. Zach Eflin might be the Nate Eovaldi in the World Series this year. I know he doesn't have as good as stuff, but he's got a good variety. He's a good pitcher. He can pitch in a playoff game for you can start. So, but to answer your question, no, I don't see Snell going there. What else do we have? Johnny Richards. What about a guy? I'm glad he brought this up. What about a guy like Cal Quantrill? Anyone after him? Yeah, Cal Quantrill and Austin Gomber. And they probably want to keep Gomber because he's like the only dude that can pitch in Coors right now. But Cal Quantrill needs to be traded if you're Colorado. But the Rockies don't really care.
Can you trade him to wherever Reese McGuire goes?
I have a bad joke in my head, but I'm not going to say it. Andrew, do the Cardinals do anything else? I'm going to say probably not.
Cardinals?
They got Pham and Fetty. I think that's a Cardinals trade deadline.
They're trying to get rid of space, trying to get rid of Gallegos and Dylan Carlson. Not that they were going to get a lot for them, but that's why I thought Tanner Scott was going to go there. But that ship has sailed.
There you go. All right, we'll get to more questions during each break too. And while we're on FT, we will be right back. Hey, we're back with Michael Schwab, Astros writer for the Juicebox Journal. You can follow him at Michael Schwab13 on Twitter. Michael, great to have you on. Let's talk Stros. So first off, what were your thoughts on what they have done so far? You say Kikuchi better be a stud for them because he is highly debated right now between multiple parties in terms of what we think he's going to bring to the table for Houston. Your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, thanks for having me, guys. So yeah, on the Kikuchi trade, I think number one, first glance, people were, you saw most people's reaction was kind of panic in a little bit. I even did a Twitter poll asking what people thought about it. I think I got about 5,000 responses, and 90% of people are saying they didn't like it. On the surface, it's hard to see that, but I mean, as you guys can see, what it takes to get a starting pitcher right now is a lot, and so that's what the Astros had to give up to get that. They gave up Lou Perfito, who was playing in the bigs. They gave up Jake Blas, who was pitching, but only because of injury he was up there. And then finally they gave up Will Wagner, who's Billy Wagner's son. Now, the thing that I will say about all this is that for a rental, it hurts. That's the biggest thing. You don't want to see good prospects going for a rental. But for the Astros, who are a win-now team and whose the window is still open, they're seeing Kikuchi as a guy who can come into that rotation in the 4 or 5 spot and bring a solid lefty who's throwing 97. And the guys that they gave up, it hurts to see them go. But on the grand scheme, I'd say that they're type of guys like Lou Perfito, who on another team, probably like Toronto, he'll get starting every day. But for the Astros, he wasn't cracking the lineup every time. So I think it's give or take, but the Astros are going for it, and that's why they went with Kikuchi.
Okay, why not, right? Listen, is their window closing? Is that also why? Because, listen, if you're Dana Brown, you're like, all right, Bregman's possibly a free agent. Tucker's not far behind. Fromber's not far behind. Justin Verlander, he says he wants to pitch till he's 50, but he's also got to be nearing the end at some point. Is their window closing? And Dana Brown said, screw it. Like Dave Dombrowski, AJ Preller, we're going for it. We're going for 1 or 2 more, last runs. Let's ride together, boys, and see what happens. Because if the Astros get in, nobody wants to play him with all their experience.
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing about it is people keep saying that the window's closing. Even last year, there were people saying, hey, the window's closing on this team, and they went all the way to the ALCS. Again, that's the story of the Astros, is that they are in a different set now. This is a different mindset of 2015, 2016, where they're building up. They've got the train going, and they're keeping it moving forward. And that's why Jim Crane paid all that money to Josh Hader. So from their perspective, they don't have an owner who wants the window to close as long as he's, in charge. And that's why they pushed Altuve and extended him. And let's see what happens with Tucker and Bregman. But, at the beginning of this year, everyone's thinking to themselves, hey, this is the end. And now they're tied at the top of the division. So it's impossible to know with the Astros. I think you can't really say the window's closed yet because they keep pumping up prospects who aren't ranked high and who keep, competing. So that's a hard one to say.
Were these, and you kind of just glazed over it a little bit, was this Kikuchi move, because maybe they're not going to bring Bregman back or not going to extend Tucker? What's the feeling there? Do they need to do more to bring these guys back? Or is it more of just, hey, if you give these guys enough money, we're good to go?
Well, I think the consensus, and with people I'm talking with, is that Alex Bregman most likely will be not back next year. And that's just really, you talk to most people, and that's just how it seems like he's going to go test the market. The Astros are going to try to get him back. There is probably a better case to get Tucker. He wants to be back. The Astros need to kind of look at it in a way that's not just a team-friendly deal, but something that works on both ends. So then they got a whole year to deal with that. But for Bregman, there's really no enticing for them. For him, he can pull a lot of money on the free agent market, and he's going to go look for it, and they'll go probably drop a qualifying offer on him to get a pick for that. But it's not a situation where, hey, let's make these moves to make sure that the players are happy so that we can sign them. They want to keep pushing, and they want to sell postseason tickets. That's the biggest thing. Now, they're not sellers. You can see that. They're going for it to some perspective, but I wouldn't say they're doing this because, hey, maybe we can get Tucker later. That's just stuff that's down the line. They just need Tucker to get healthy is the biggest thing. And they also needed pitching. That's the biggest thing. Kikuchi is going to take innings away from some of the players who are struggling right now. And maybe they can get to 6-man if JV comes back. So they're trying to build it to get through this long season. But I wouldn't say they did these trades like, hey, what do you think, Bregman? No, this is them trying to get going further.
Hey, Michael, what are your thoughts on the rest of the division? this year, right? How this stacks up for Houston the rest of the way with what the Mariners have done so far, like adding a Randy Arozarena and a Justin Turner, and the Rangers, at least as of right now, not doing anything crazy, just like a very, a little drop of adding, a little drop of subtracting. What's your take on how this plays out and, how those two teams have looked?
Well, I mean, you look at the Mariners, and this is the hardest thing. The reason why the Astros are where they are is not just because they've been winning so many games in a row. It's because the Mariners have also been losing. And so the Mariners have gone out and they've gotten Randy. They went to get Justin Turner. These, I think, in my opinion, are smaller moves, hopefully to move the needle, but they're still dealing with injuries with J.P. Crawford. They're still dealing with an injury with Julio. And so I'm not sure exactly what the Mariners can do. They keep proving that they're going to lose games over and over, and the Astros are trying to work it. It's just this balancing act, one after another. The Rangers also, they haven't been performing what they were like last year. I mean, the bats have not been as hot, and the pitching's been struggling too. So the entire AL West is out of balance. There's no idea what can happen. But if the Astros keep winning like they did for July, then they can probably take it. But right now, there's no one running away with it. Now, does Kikuchi get them over the edge? Does the reliever they get, and even if they get Yandy Diaz, which I'm not sure if that's going to happen, does that take them over the edge? I mean, it's impossible to know. They have to just keep slowly winning. But there is no clear favorite right now in the AL West.
Michael, thank you so much for stopping by on FT for the first time. We appreciate it. And we'll post some of these clips, obviously, and link you on your Twitter account so people can give you a follow and check out all of your work. Thanks for joining us during this hot time.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
You too. Michael Schwab joining us. We'll be right back with C. Trent Rosecrans. What are the Reds up to? All right, under an hour left on this show. It's been flying with Kratz and Pierzynski. And then if you're watching on YouTube right now, you just stay here and all of the prospect returns, like a kind of evaluation of all of the trades on the prospect side from Baseball America Hot Sheet, that'll follow. So we'll flip you over to that channel, or you can just go there at 6:30 Eastern time. I'll start with a comment this time. Daniel said, taking a shot for every Dodgers trade today. Looks like I'm going to be sober. That was good. You don't like that? They haven't done anything. Dodger fans are like, yo, I want more. I got Kopech and Edman. Is that enough?
More?
What else can they do?
I don't know. They haven't done anything in the past year. It's just frustrating if you're a Dodgers fan. Like, they've done nothing. Meanwhile, there are other deals. Who?
The best teams haven't done much. That's okay.
I know. I'm being sarcastic. Yeah. There also is some science to not disrupting a clubhouse, right? No?
I mean, you can bring in a big player. It's okay to disrupt the clubhouse.
Right, but if you're making a smaller move? Some people said, for example, Austin Hayes was like a big deal in the Orioles clubhouse. They're like, I wouldn't have done that. And it's like, okay.
Yeah.
No.
3 homers, 14 RBIs. Meh.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you put it that way. We are tracking some of these recent deals, like the Pittsburgh Pirates picking up a couple bats. So we'll get to that soon when we have a little more time, and we'll give that to the TV crowd as well. Some pros and cons to those moves. And we will be right back with C. Trent Rosecrans. We're going to talk about the state of the Cincinnati Reds giving away Lucas Sims, who Eno Sarris called, the number 2 reliever that was available to Tanner Scott. That's a big deal right there. We'll ask him about the return that the Red Sox just got from Cincinnati coming up. What's up, FT fam? We're back. We're all staring at our phones, obviously, to see what's coming up next. C. Trent Rosecrans from The Athletic joining us right now. C. Trent, great to have you on. First, let's start, of course, with your ball club that you follow, the Cincinnati Reds. They trade away Lucas Sims. Your colleague, Eno Sarris, was just on with us maybe 40 minutes ago and said it was his second favorite reliever realistically available. Can you add to that on how good he's looked and what his stuff has been like on the mound?
I mean, Lucas has kind of been the same since he's been here. He can run up the strikeouts, but he's got such huge east-west movement that a lot of times he doesn't even know where those are going, and those can go outside of the zone. And so you look at a high strikeout rate, high walk rate. It seems like almost every time he's out there, he's going to do one of the two, and you know that he is capable of striking anybody out. And finished his Reds career is with a strikeout fittingly last night. So he's a guy that's going to add some value there. And it'll be interesting to see him in Boston.
What is the state of the Reds fan base in your mind, given that they certainly don't seem like they're a team that's going for it unless a lot changes in the next 20 minutes? I mean, it's not like a full-on sell, but it's certainly not the Reds believing in this year's ball club, right?
Well, yeah, and I think it's simple math. I was in Tampa this past weekend, and you saw the job that they've done there. And they've really kind of just said, hey, listen, we know where we are. We know what the math says. We're going to do it. This is a team that is hoping to get Matt McLean back later in the month or so. And I think that's I think that's more for him to be ready for 2025 than 2024. And it doesn't add up. There's so many teams in contention, and you're seeing teams go for it and teams that are kind of making these kind of moves. So the Reds have traded in the last 24 hours 2 guys who were going to be free agents after this season already. So it's not like a sell-off, but I don't know that they're significantly worse than they were before these moves.
Is it C. Trent or Trent? Because we had our
whatever you want to call me.
Yeah,
well, typical Georgia fan can't even figure out what their name is, but that's besides the point.
Oh, I know what it is. I just don't want to confuse you.
Okay, Bob. Hey, Bob. Let me ask you a question about the Reds.
You can go Trent or C. Trent. You gotta love that.
Yeah. You could. The C doesn't sound for couch, so you don't. You may not be interested.
Okay. So is this with them trading Sims and Montas? I mean, they signed Montas to a deal when I remember they signed it. Everyone was like, "Man, he got a lot for 1 year of not having pitched." Right? They traded him away. They got some prospects back. Is 2025 the year when the Reds are going to spend some money in the offseason, keep their players, and actually go for it? And I'm not talking like, listen, yeah, we were happy when Frankie Montas signed there, but are they going to go out and make a splash on the free agent market and add to the McLeans, the Ellie De La Cruzes, the Stevensons, all these guys that they've stacked up now year after year, Abbott, Lodolo, all these guys like boom, 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 boom. Here we go. So are they going to go out and spend some money and give David Bell a team that can actually compete? Because I picked the Reds to win the division this year.
Yeah, but the Reds that you picked to win the division haven't really been on the field this year.
True, but I mean that's happened.
And I think
about the
what
Braves,
they're trying to do now. Yeah, they're trying to add some depth, and that's where they haven't had it. And especially the outfield. That's where the money needs to go to. You look around and you have infielders. They spent money on Jeimer Candelario and Frankie Montas last year, but they were kind of weird fits. Frankie wasn't a weird fit. He was kind of made a lot of sense. Jeimer Candelario still, I think, is kind of a weird fit, and he has 2 more years left on that. But what they need to add is offense from the outfield, and that's a question: is it out there to be signed?
It is. It is. Breaking right here. Bob Rosecrans says Juan Soto to the Reds.
Yeah, they're not going to spend that kind of money.
Okay, you said outfield's where it's at. There you go.
That's where they need to go, but I don't think we will see Juan Soto here as anything other on the third base side. But that is what they need to look for. And hey, free agency, there's 2 things. It's not free, and the players have agency. So if I'm an outfielder and I've got a little pop, I might want to come play here, especially on one of those 1-year show me deals. It's not the worst place in the world to hit. So hopefully for their sake, that's probably what you're trying to sell and finding those kind of guys. But I don't know. I think it's a valid question, AJ, and I don't honestly know if that's what they're going to do, but I think they will have some money to spend to really surround this young nucleus. And we've seen such a big step up from the pitching staff as well. And so I think that is the right question, and the answer is to be seen.
Is this enough? Is this enough for the Reds, or is there something that they should have done?
I think you should kind of look for everything and try to one of the biggest problems they've had this year has been depth. And when you're talking about guys like Blake Dunn and Jacob Hurtubise and Connor Capel and some of the other guys that they've had mostly in the outfield to fill in, they if Joey Weimer say he's a 4A guy, well, they haven't had any 4A guys. They had AA and AAA guys playing in the outfield in the big league, so it is a step up. I honestly think at this point you sell off anything that's not for certain going to be in 2025. And that is a guy. I think Nick Martinez could bring back a pretty impressive return, because I like what Nick Martinez has done quite a bit. He has some versatility. He's pitched really well out of the bullpen. Look at his splits as a reliever versus as a starter this year. And that's a guy that you could go for. I'd heard talk about maybe some people interested in Jeimer Candelario, and that's a deal I would make, certainly, because I'm still not sure where he fits, especially bringing Ty France in. So, I don't think it's enough, and I would be pretty surprised in the last 20 minutes if we don't get something else.
Last one for you, because you mentioned how you were down in Tampa Bay. I read your story on what the Rays were up to, so just wanted to get any extra insight on what it was like down there, because it was a team that was competitive for some time, fun vibes, right? And they're subtracting some entertainment value. Oh, they had one in Christopher Morel, but I remember one piece of your story saying how Erik Neander, who's running the front office there, wasn't even eating that day. He's just working the phone, selling off pieces left and right. So what did you get out of being down there during that, surprise sell-off, I would say, to an extent, to go that deep like the Rays did?
Are you ever surprised when the Rays trade somebody?
No, I guess not.
like really, I mean, that's what they do. That's why they've been in the playoffs 5 straight years, and they're not going to make it this year. But they, like Neander said, is like, they went from 2014 to 2019, or they had a 5-year span there before 2019 where they didn't make the playoffs, and they didn't want to go another 5 years when it looked like they probably weren't. The thing with the Rays is that they play in the wrong league, because right now the National League is one good team and 2 really bad teams and a bunch of mediocre teams with a couple sleeping giants. And the American League, which is more balanced, but that division is where most of the heavyweights are. And I don't see, again, the one thing the Rays have been very good at doing in the last couple of years is math. And they looked at the math and where they would have to go to get to like 89 games, which is what got the 3rd wild card in the AL last year. And that was going to be playing significantly better than they were. So they're ruthless and unsentimental, and that's something that is why they can keep going back and forth and doing all that. Randy Arozarena is probably like the most impactful single player. I mean, him or Evan Longoria in team history, and to get there and trade him when he still has that much control tells you that this is just how they do business, and that's how they're going to continue to do business for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, it's a bummer. I mean, that's a franchise guy that they really love there. But, yep, it is what it is. It's business in Tampa Bay as they're getting a new ballpark. But I don't know if there'll be any players left.
And they had their highest attendance for a 3-game series all year this past weekend. Lots of Reds fans were there. Really,
lots of Reds fans. I was going to say, yeah.
They hadn't been there since 2017. Ellie De La Cruz is worth the price of a ticket. So, yeah, it was interesting. They had Florida Gator night one night, and I didn't bark at anybody, which was progress, I thought.
You also probably didn't hump their leg, but that's good. Good, you're learning.
Yeah.
Also, let's not forget the Reds used to be in Sarasota and Plant City, so there's a lot of
and Tampa.
Yeah,
and Tampa for those a little older than you. They had pretty good teams back then too.
Yep, that explains it. Well, somebody's got to fill the ballpark if it's not going to be their fans, because their fans are pissed off. But it is what it is.
That's funny.
C. Trent, thank you so much. Appreciate it as always. Follow C. Trent at C. Trent C-Trent, and all his work in The Athletic. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya. Go Dogs.
Later. All right. Let's get caught up on some trades, shall we?
Yes.
We got a fresh one. I was going to go somewhere else, but we're going to go here first. Jeff Passan reporting the Baltimore Orioles are finalizing a deal to acquire
Jack Flaherty.
Who were you going to say? Jack Flaherty?
Jack Flaherty.
Eloy Jimenez. Same division. Very different player. Eloy Jimenez from the Chicago White Sox to the Baltimore Orioles.
Listen,
you watch more White Sox than anyone.
This says more about the White Sox wanting to get rid of him for me. Like, what? What's he going to do for the Orioles? Like, honestly, what's he going to do for the Orioles? Where's he going to play? DH?
He has to DH. He can't.
But you have O'Hearn at first. He's pretty good. Santander, right? You can't play the outfield.
It's a bat. It's an extra bat.
It's a bat off the bench, right?
Yeah, probably.
He's going to watch some games.
He's a free agent at the end of the year.
Is he a free agent?
I think he has an option, but they're probably not going to pick it up.
No, of course.
No.
Yeah. Team option next year. So this is it. So it's just extra bat for the end of the season. I'm sure there'll be some money exchanged as well. But this is it.
You don't think they go and get a starter?
I hope. No. Orioles, no. I think they're done.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was Rogers and it was Eflin. But, I mean, you watched Eloy. Yeah, he cannot play outfield for a team that's going for a World Series. And then,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, he's been on. I mean, he's had his injuries as always, but when he's been on the field this year, he's not hitting.
Listen, he doesn't play. He is not going to play for the White Sox. They're like, it sure doesn't seem like he's going to play.
What do you mean?
Like the end of the year, coming down the stretch for the White Sox, Eloy Jimenez was going to play. I'm sorry. I did a game on Saturday. He didn't start.
Yeah. So they were done. So it was just.
I feel like this is like we tried. He couldn't stay healthy. Maybe the Orioles can keep him healthy for the rest of the year. He becomes a free. Think about this, okay? And this is not a knock. Again, 2021, Field of Dreams. White Sox are flying high. They win the division. They're going into the postseason. Their four best players on the team: Jose Abreu, Tim Anderson, Eloy Jimenez, Yoan Moncada. They all might be out of baseball next year. Abreu is already pretty much gone. Tim Anderson is out. Eloy Jimenez and Yoan Moncada are probably going to go to camp on a minor league deal next year, fighting to get a job. I mean, that's 3 years ago.
Abreu makes sense because of his age. The others don't. Like,
no,
Eloy is
that's
27 years old.
It doesn't make sense. Like, what happened? This was the middle of their rebuild. These were the four guys that they were, especially Eloy and Moncada and Anderson. These were like, the guys that were supposed to be boom, and they all four could be gone. It's amazing.
I wonder if there's any money there because it's $13 million this season. So whatever the math is for that left for the rest of the year, probably 5-ish. It's not nothing. I guarantee the Sox took a little money back. They made another trade too while we've been chatting. Our guy Robert Murray says the Phillies are acquiring left-hander Tanner Banks from the White Sox. That was a name that was talked about. Phillies getting Tanner Banks.
So Eloy has a option for next year for 16.5.
No
chance. And then 18.5 in 26.
No, they're going to buy him out for a few mil. But I'm saying
they're going to pay it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the Orioles might have gotten them to take on everything, but $1 million or two just now. And for the White Sox, it's like you might as well save anything.
White Sox are trying. This is good. This is what you need to do. Just start over.
Yeah. The Marlins are doing it too. We're going to get to that because since we've spoken, they've done quite a bit to completely get rid of the 2024 Marlins, aside from the dudes that are on the IL. But what about Tanner Banks? I mean, probably a guy that can thrive elsewhere, or at least pitch okay elsewhere. He's had an okay year. I'm curious what the Phillies.
He's been okay out of the bullpen.
Do with him.
He's a length guy though for him. He's a length guy. He's a lefty that can give you multiple innings.
I wonder, does he have options or anything left?
He's ARB eligible.
No, he's 32.
He's only like in his second year, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, very late bloomer. I'm just curious, why Philadelphia is probably just stacking up some depth, no, Kratz? Because here's the thing that people forget. You can't make a trade for a big leaguer after today.
Yes.
So if you lose a pitcher or two, you're going to your minor league system. So if you can stack up some depth, it's not the worst thing in the world.
100%.
All right, our next guest is ready. She writes for the Washington Post. Chelsea Janes joining us right now. Let's talk to Chelsea about the state of the Washington Nationals. Chelsea, great to have you on. What's the deal with the Nats? I mean, the big one, at least lately, was Lane Thomas, and it looks like the asking price ended up being too high for Kyle Finnegan. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I wouldn't be surprised if Floro somehow goes somewhere in the next few minutes. But from what I've heard and my understanding, I think those were the two guys they had left to shop. And, Finnegan isn't the kind of stuff guy that I think people are willing to overpay for. So I think they would be content to keep him as a cheap closer for next year too. But we'll see.
Is there a chance that they could have, was there talk that there maybe have been some big move where it's we just got somebody that's controllable for 25, 26 during this time? I know that's more off season, but was there talk of that?
I heard some rumblings that that's something that's on their radar, but I don't think it was at this deadline. I think that was more of an off-season thing that might be on their radar. They've got a lot to figure out, I think, in terms of how much they're going to be able to spend next off-season. So I don't think they're in a great position to make kind of long-term deals at this point, but I do think that's on their radar. I just think it's more of an off-season thing to maybe try to get somebody who they can control and be a part of the next core.
Chelsea, one more on the Nats, then we'll get to the O's. What can you tell Guardians fans about what they're getting with Lane Thomas, both as a player, the scouting report, and then also as a person?
Yeah, I think he's, it's easy to say watching him every day. I do think he's a little bit underrated. He's a legit 25 threat if he stays healthy for a whole season at this point. He's a guy who also has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, so to speak. I think he has always sort of thought he's been a little more underrated than he should be. And, he likes to play. And I'm glad for his sake he's going somewhere where he'll probably get to play closer to every day than he might have somewhere else where he would have been a platoon option. So he's a really good baseball player and he's really experienced. And, he's a big addition that I think will fit in well with a team that's contending.
Wow. Okay. I just got to say this. I know we're talking about Nats and their lack of moves, but the Orioles, Eloy Jimenez, is he just a bat off the bench for him? Because where's he going to play? He can't play the field.
I said whoa when I saw that just now. I'm not sure. That is a little bit of an uncharacteristic move for them, if only for the money. I mean, I'm sure we'll learn more about how that's all going to play out. The one thing I will say, they've wanted a bat to replace Hayes. That's not the direction I necessarily thought they were looking, but they are good at helping guys make better swing decisions. And, I don't know. It's just an interesting move. And I'm sort of interested to hear what Mike Elias says about it, because that one kind of came out of nowhere for me too.
Yeah. I mean, the other moves make sense, right? Where are we on the move for the starting pitchers with Eflin and Rogers coming over? Where are we on the move for the Orioles? Are they done, or are they going to try to make one more big splash?
I think that's it. I think that's kind of what they felt like they could do. I think the return for Rogers and Stowers and Norby was pretty hefty. A lot of people here, Orioles fans, I've heard kind of grumbling, thinking, couldn't we have gotten more? But if you weren't going to part with Jackson Holliday and Samuel Vassallo, which they weren't, I think that's what you can do. And the big thing for them is Eflin and Rogers are both under control next year. I mean, they're probably going to lose Corbin Burns to free agency. Kyle Bradish is going to be out until late next year. They just need innings. And I don't know that they've improved their chances in a short playoff series, at all. But I think they've certainly created some depth in the rotation. And, with Rogers too, I think they're just so much better at player development and improving guys than the Marlins have been. And, I'd expect them to make some changes there in pitch selection and pitch mix that probably end up helping him a little bit.
Okay, so let me ask this, because you say how many prospects and they traded away Stowers and Norby, but where are they going to play? That's the question for me with all these Orioles prospects. They have all these prospects. Eventually, someone's got to come up. They had a chance to bring Jackson Holliday up to play second base, right? He's not there. He's still in Norfolk. So at some point, you got to use these guys to get better at your big league level, or give them a shot at the big leagues. And right now they're kind of logjam.
Yeah, and I thought that this deadline would help them sort that more. I mean, I think the Austin Hayes trade seemed like one of those moves that was going to clear out a vet and create room for someone else. But as it happened, it seems like they were looking for some kind of replacement for him. So, it wasn't that way. And, maybe Mullins, Mountcastle, guys like that, I thought maybe this would be the time to clear them because you can add and also clear room for these prospects who you think are ready. So the logjam still exists. I'll be honest that I thought we would see it clear a little more. I thought they would do a little more, but they've been very consistent in their caution. They're not going to make the big deal. They're not going to reach. And I just think that's exactly what you saw here in a market that would have required them to reach. They didn't do it. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But I think you're right. I mean, this hasn't answered some of the biggest questions that face them in terms of where these guys play and what their rotation, the top of their rotation in particular, is going to look like in October and beyond.
Hey, last one for you, because we just found out that Jack Flaherty's going to the Dodgers and Garrett Crochet is definitely not being traded. So will Orioles fans be satisfied with what was just done here? Both, I know you covered the starters, and then also, if you can, just quickly touch on the relief pitching crew that they have, including Craig Kimbrell in the 9th inning in the playoffs.
I don't think they're going to be very satisfied. I think this is going to be one of the angstier days of feedback for Mike Elias. Dominguez really helps, but I think they know what they have and don't have in Craig Kimbrell. That's a big question mark for me, particularly in October. And it doesn't look like they've gotten somebody to help that. So, the starters help, but they help in a way that is boring and in the regular season. Zach Eflin's not changing your number one starter in the postseason. So from that perspective, I think it's going to feel like a little bit of a disappointment, but they've been good at evaluating their young guys so far, and clearly they believe in what they have in-house.
Chelsea, thank you so much for joining us. It's always great to talk to you and enjoy these last few minutes of whatever comes out.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Chelsea Janes, always great to have her on FT, of course, and give her a follow. Check out her work covering both teams, the Nationals and the Baltimore Orioles, which is great. And you can check out our articles in the Washington Post. Follow her at Chelsea_Janes. Okay, let's get caught up for a sec. Jeff Passan reporting that Jack Flaherty is going to the Dodgers.
That's our move. Their answer. There it is. It's a big move.
It's a great pickup.
It is, especially for a short-term pickup.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the year he's having, you slot him in behind Glass now. Yamamoto, if he comes back, Kershaw, wherever they get out of him.
Gavin Stone's been good.
Buehler.
There's a lot of options there.
Whew.
Yeah.
I mean,
this is a big, big pickup for the Dodgers. Also, for fans that are like, well, last year he looked okay, and then he bombed with the Orioles.
Ugh.
The Orioles knew that he could run out of steam at that point. He hadn't pitched much the prior few years. He looks like the Jack Flaherty that we saw a few years back when he was a Cy Young contender. High strikeout numbers, career best walk numbers, the velocity, the breaker, it's all back to what it used to look like. I would say potentially even more mature in terms of his first pitch strikes, like the way he's approaching hitters. I would say when you watch his starts nowadays, looks more polished is the word that I'm looking for. We'll get the return soon because it had to be decent, like we've mentioned. If he gets to free agency with the Tigers, they offer him a qualifying offer, he would have said no. They'd get a pick in the 30s between the first round and the compensation A round. So we'll find out what the Dodgers gave up for him, but this is exactly why you do this in the offseason. They signed him for 1 year, $14 million. There were a bunch of starters who signed in that similar range. Montas was one of them, but Flaherty was the prize, and they should get something pretty good for him.
Yes, and by the way, I love Padres Nation. You had one job, Yankees, because they're mad that the Yankees didn't get Flaherty and the Dodgers got him. I love Twitter battles like between teams and teams fans. It's great.
One dude that I mentioned earlier at least gets to have one cocktail today. He said he wanted to take a shot for a Dodgers trade. That's a big one. You might want to go.
I want to go double.
Yeah, go
double.
Long Island iced tea action or something.
What?
What? It's got all the drinks
I know,
together.
but that's not a shot.
No, I know.
Don't do a shot of Long Island iced tea. Don't do
I
a
won't
shot
do
of
anything
Long
for
Island
you.
iced tea.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm saying if you're getting a heavy drink, like a drink that's got a lot to it.
Oh, I mean, you could just go like straight tequila or
Sure,
something.
sure. I don't know. It missed, whatever. But this trade hits, okay? This is
I
a
can't
guy
wait
who
to see
can
the
pitch.
return.
Yeah, but he can pitch game 1 for you in a postseason series. He won't for
They
them.
traded Shohei and Freddie Freeman for him.
But okay, now let's sum up the Dodgers returns. Just now.
Kevin Kiermaier to the Dodgers too.
So okay, let's go
For
over
Ryan
this.
Yarbrough, I bet.
Ready? In the last few days, the Dodgers picked up Kevin Kiermaier, Ahmed Rosario, Tommy Edman, Michael Kopech, and Jack Flaherty. It's pretty good
They're
job.
revamping. And they'll get Mookie Betts back soon.
Obviously, they got a lot still on the way back. There's going to be some DFAs on the current
Seriously.
roster.
There's going to be some dudes, if they win it this year, that are getting rings that were there for like a week.
Yeah.
Yep, sorry.
Nick Ahmed.
Nick Ahmed hit a big homer, though, against his old team.
I know, but I just don't think there's going to be room for that.
Martin Perez to the Padres, too.
So who's playing shortstop for the Dodgers, though?
Ahmed Rosario for now.
And maybe Edman later, and maybe Mookie, or you're saying Mookie might play a different position.
Yeah.
Yeah. But also, just lastly here, to sum this up, the Tigers did what they were supposed to do.
Mhm.
They kept Skubal, as they should. They should be a contender next year, at least for a playoff spot. You can't do this to your fans every year, but you're not making it this year, so you trade away the best available starting pitcher. Because also, Ken Rosenthal reported while we were chatting, Garrett Crochet is not going anywhere. Didn't work out. So he stays with the White Sox. So
wait, so the Padres got Martin Perez. The Yankees got Enyel de los Santos.
Oh, yeah.
And Dylan Carlson to the Tampa Bay Rays.
Yep. Yeah, Luis Garcia from the Angels to the Red Sox. That one was a lock, as he was going to be free agent after this year. It looks like, as we mentioned, some of the Angels that were under contract for next year will stay for that championship journey that they'll be on next year. But anyway,
Tragic.
Take a quick break. Let's go over what the Mets and the Yankees did with Keith McPherson from WFAN coming up. All right, so we've hit time. What's up, YouTube fam? We're here for another 25-ish minutes. Then we've got the Baseball America Hot Sheet Show, if you want to check that out for all the prospect returns, including what we're talking about here with the Dodgers. But unless we get some big trades coming through, you're going to have some really happy fan bases. Like, I think the Dodgers should be really happy, the fan base, with what they just did. They did a lot, in my mind, right? You have a high-leverage arm in Kopech. You got a top-end starter in Jack Flaherty. Could you make a case that they could have used a Luis Robert or some other kind of big bat? Okay, yeah, you can make that case. You know, Edman's more of an average bat who can play everywhere. But then you're going to find out how Yankee fans are feeling with Keith coming up, how Red Sox fans are feeling, you know, how our Pirates fans feeling. We didn't get to them yet. We will, but Brian De La Cruz and
IKF,
Isaiah Kiner-Falefa.
But then Martin Perez was on that team, and they shipped him to the Padres.
Yeah. Well, they've been shipping some starters out. They
Yeah.
got rid of Quinn Priester yesterday, too, for Nick York.
0 top 100 prospects traded.
The Pirates needed big bats. I know there weren't many
Taylor
available.
Cruz
It's
isn't
tough
bad.
to figure
IKF's
out.
a good player.
Yeah, they're good players.
But, yeah. But listen, at least they did something.
True. All right, so in 1 minute, we're going to talk to Keith McPherson about the Yankees and Mets moves, and then we'll get to that return for the Dodgers. Trying to find out. Oh, yeah, 2 prospects here, including Trey Sweeney, who I know a bit about. That's a good one. And I'm going to butcher this other one. Theron Lorenzo. Sure.
So I'm looking at, he's got a 700 OPS and A-ball plus. He's 21 years old. Okay. I mean, yeah.
Who, Lorenzo?
Lorenzo. And Sweeney's got a 761 OPS in the PCL, which.
Yeah.
That's supposed to be a hitter's league.
It should be, 981 or whatever.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know if they.
All right, we'll be right back with Keith. All right, FT fam, we've got Keith McPherson joining us right now, host on WFAN and on the Bleacher Report app. Here we go. I see you raising your hands up, Keith. Or was that a stretch or was that happiness? Like Yankee fans feelings here?
Hey,
Looks like.
well, first off, thanks for having me back on. Appreciate you
Course,
guys. Best in the business, best baseball pod, period. But my hands are also up because I'm refreshing Twitter. I'm like, is that it? Is that it? 5 minutes after the pencils are down, that's it, Brian Cashman, please. I needed more. I needed a little more.
What did you want? What did you want for the Yanks that they didn't get? I know probably the high leverage arm was brought up quite a bit. And when I mean high leverage, I mean like Tanner Scott. But the Yankees weren't giving up 4 prospects like the Padres did.
That's it, right? So, I mean, with the roller coaster ride that we take with Clay Holmes on the mound in the 9th inning, myself and a lot of Yankee fans are like, we need a high leverage arm. We need a reliever closer, like somebody that can seal the deal if we think we're winning games in October. I think they have a lot of faith in Clay, but they did add some other arms. I was looking today for another starter. With the news of Garrett Cole being scratched, I know he had the stomach bug. They said he's just got general body fatigue. Even without that, like, Luis Gil is a rookie coming off Tommy John. He's looked great as of his last 3 starts, but like I feel like you need another guy to take the ball in October. And there was rumor of them maybe moving on from Nestor Cortez, possibly trying to get Jack Flaherty into here. That didn't happen. The Dodgers strike again. I'm mad at the Padres. The Padres, they make moves that the Yankees should be making, and they gave us Juan Soto. They go and get Dylan Cease. They go get Luis Arias. They go get Tanner Scott. I'm like, these are the moves that I need the Yankees to make.
And you wanted a closer that wasn't going to walk guys in the 9th inning? Where was that going to be? Were you going to get Robert Suarez from the Padres? We're just going to take him. He's pretty much the only closer that doesn't walk, dudes.
Carlos Estevez
every Yankee
walk,
fan, every Yankee fan is screaming for swing and miss. I think they went out there and they got that with Mark Leiter Jr. They got that with De Los Santos, but I don't know if those guys are going to be slotted in the closer role. I think they're sticking with Clay. I also wanted another bat. I mean, Jazz obviously in 2 games has made an instant impact. He's going to be a fan favorite. I'll be there Friday when he hits Yankee Stadium. He's built for the bright lights. But Giancarlo Stanton just got scratched. They bring him up. He can't go back-to-back days DHing. I'm like, he needs at-bats. He needs to see pitches. I don't know. I'm just – that's why when I saw my hands are up. It's 6:07 now. I'm like, that's it. And I think the Yankees feel confident in who they have coming back. And the fact that they have Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, and they're hoping that that's enough in this American League that we think is somewhat wide open for them to make a push to the Fall Classic.
Okay, so then let's finish with Mets. Let's do Mets real quick. Winker, and then a ton of pitchers, actually. Paul Blackburn, Phil Maton, Ryan Stanek. I'm talking about the last week and change. Maton's a little further back. And then today, Huascar Brazoban. I'm probably butchering that name, but I've watched him pitch for the Marlins. Looks pretty damn good. Definitely is going to fill a spot for the Mets. They've done a full-on makeover of their bullpen because they weren't prepared to be good. And they were like, okay, wait, we're good. Let's get a new bullpen real quick so we can compete. So do you like what they did?
Of course. I just was texting one of my boys who's a Mets fan, and I said, David Stearns is good at this. David Stearns is good at this. You guys might not – Mets fans are not happy with the deadline because they feel like this is a team of destiny and you're supposed to go all in. I think David Stearns is realistic. I think he's very baseball smart. He made a lot of marginal moves, but he made a lot of moves. He got rid of some guys, and their main concern was their bullpen. These guys are scoring double-digit runs and putting up double-digit hits multiple times a week. That lineup is one of the best lineups in baseball since June. They needed to fortify the bullpen, and now they have guys like Jose Butto, who we saw last night. They were stretching him out potentially to be a starter. I think going out and getting Paul Blackburn, that solves that. He stays in the bullpen. And then you will see what happens with the guys that they have. They added 5 right-handed pitchers, Phil Maton, Ryan Stanek. You actually just mentioned Brazoban, Tyler Zuber, and I just mentioned Blackburn. And then also they bring in a guy who was a villain in Jesse Winker just a few years ago. Mets fans hated that guy. Mets fans still hate that guy. They're waiting for him to have his moment, and I think he will. This Mets team I think is right in the thick of the wild card hunt for the rest of the year, no matter if they stumble or whatnot. But I think after seeing the Diamondbacks last year, and everybody loves to bring up the Nationals and their slow start when they won it. Why can't the Mets make some noise this year and get back to a World Series? They can hit. I think they've got enough starting pitching. It's tough to see Kodai Senga go down and Christian Scott go down in a matter of a week, but I think that they have enough with Severino, Quintana, what you've seen lately out of Sean Manaea, even a guy like David Peterson. Like, I think they've got enough to compete for the rest of this regular season and see themselves into the postseason.
All right, who's got a better chance at the World Series? Real quick, Mets or Yankees after the trade deadline?
Ooh. The Yankees. I mean, New York is a crazy place. There are people talking about the Mets having a better shot than the Yankees. Listen, the Yankees are right behind the Orioles, who have not been playing so great, which is, the saving grace for the Yankees. But now the Yankees are 3-0 since that Chaz news broke. I think they can still win the division. I think in the American League, they have a good of a chance as anybody. I think now you see the Braves go out and get Soler. You see the Braves, salvage a split in Queens and not just, give it up to the Mets after how they lost Friday. And I think the Mets are in the thick of it. But if we're talking about a team that's stacked, that when the lights are bright, guys that we're expecting to perform, like Stanton when he gets right, obviously Soto and Judge, I mentioned, Garrett Cole when he's going right. I think the Yankees in the American League, they're the betting favorites. And if they play like they're supposed to play in October, they can get there.
I like it, Keith. Great stuff. Thanks for joining us, dude. You can listen to Keith, obviously, late night on WFAN, and give him a follow at Keith_McPherson. Appreciate you, man. See you soon.
Hey, appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me. Later.
Thank you. Later. Keith McPherson with us. Jonathan Papelbon joining us next. We'll get Pap on what the Red Sox did in just a moment. And I can kind of give you a little recap. So 2 relievers, 1 starter, that would be Paxton, and 1 reliever in Sims, who obviously some people really like. And then they got themselves the backup catcher in Danny Jansen.
Mm-hmm.
So they did stuff. Should Red Sox and Pirates fans be satisfied?
They're never well, Red Sox fans are never
and they're very different fan bases. But
the Pirates are like, we did something, so we're satisfied.
I feel like they probably are in a similar range in terms of their percentage chance of making the playoffs, both of those teams.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't a big splash. There weren't a ton of big splashes to be made. Understandable, right? Not a ton of bats available. Remember, a few months back, we're talking about Pete Alonso, Vladdy. Those names were not available. Even Luis Robert, apparently, wasn't
none of the big starters, really. I mean, Flaherty.
Yeah.
None of the big starting pitchers.
Pirates didn't need a big starter. They needed bats.
Yeah, I know.
Red Sox, you could make a case for a lot of different things. All right. Pap's ready. Jonathan Papelbon with us. Let's get his take on it. Obviously, you can see and hear him on Nesson and the whole deal. He's shaking his head, so I know how he's going to feel. We are still on national TV, so there's probably some words you want to use that you can't, but good luck to you. What do you got for us?
I've got nothing for you, actually. Sims, it's like, first of all, I'm going to get started on the Sims kid. It's like buying an old record player that it's broke, but it might be fun to fix it, Quentin Presser, I like that deal, but man, there was so much, in my opinion, there was so much more that needed to be done. And I don't know in Breslau's first year how bad his hands were wrapped behind his back on some of these deals, but to me, if I'm sitting in the Boston Red Sox clubhouse, there's an eerie feeling that, man, we didn't go do enough.
What should they have done?
The last guy that just left the board, I'm sitting here having a drink saying, man, come on, Flaherty. Come on, Brez, where you at? And sure enough, Dodger. I mean, look, at least he doesn't have to play for the Yankees, I think Flaherty was the last stud that was available, and I just don't think we were willing to give up enough for him. You got to understand the Red Sox system, since I've been in their system, and now looking at it from, the media standpoint, from the outside looking in,
they truly do look at these guys like Bayo, Rafaela, who they signed to these long-term deals. They look at their prospects as pure gold. They do. And they're just not willing to give up on them. And so they've always been built from within. And I think the only championships besides that with Dave Dombrowski, they brought in guys. But other than that, they've always built from within. And man, it pisses me off because, yeah, I want to go and, broadcast great games and be in a race. I do. But, it's not my decision at the end of the day. I just look at, from an outsider looking in at the needs that were eye glaring. And we didn't really even we did some, but not enough. And I don't know how else to say that. Yeah, I want to come on here and say more explicative words, but I can't. And it's frustrating. and I can tell you right now, all of the Red Sox fan base is frustrated. There's not a single one that's not, because they know we need another starting pitcher. They know that Pavetta's pitched more innings than he already has in his entire career. They know Terrence Houck's done the same. And not only to mention that, you got a guy like Garrett Cole that's getting scratched with the Yankees in the same division, and you got the Orioles building a monstrosity. It's like you've got to be able to keep up with that. And in the AL East, if you don't, you just get stomped.
Yeah. All right, Pap. But, I mean, you can't really talk trash on the Yankees because you have them in your Twitter profile as your picture. So, listen, you can't really say anything bad about the Yankees, okay? But good thing for you, since the Red Sox didn't do anything, the Phillies did some stuff. The Nats didn't really do anything. So I guess now you can become a Phillies fan.
Yeah, I'm about to go put some money on the Phillies, no lie, to win the World Series.
All right, so with that being said, because we got to sneak these in, and then we'll get back to some trade talk. Let's do our locks quick here. So we'll sift through yesterday. Kratz and I hit. Sorry, I'm trying to fix my grammar. AJ didn't, but you were going for it big.
Everything hit except for the under, where the Red Sox somehow scored like 25 runs. Actually, the Patriots beat the Seahawks, 14-7 yesterday?
Yeah.
I mean, oh, baby. I mean,
they
wow.
smacked
Didn't
Seattle.
see that coming.
All right, Pap, you're up first.
I got mine's pretty simple. I mean, the Orioles have just been injected like 10 cc's of life. So I'm going to take them tonight, and I'm also going to take the team that pretty much gave away every big leaguer they had except for maybe one, Luis Roberts Jr. So I'm going against them again, your boys, and I'm parlaying them together plus 116, I believe, 200.
Damn. You know what? I'm actually going to follow you. I'm going to tail you a little bit, but I'm adding one thing on just because Lucy Burge told me to take them. So I'm taking Royals money line against the White Sox because 15 in a row, might as well go for 16. I'm taking the Orioles against the Blue Jays because the Orioles are adding. They're going to be fired up. And for James McCann and his face after yesterday. And I'm taking Gunnar Henderson to go deep off Chris Bassett today. And that gets me to plus 590.
Ooh, it should. That's a lot. That's a big ask.
I mean, what's the big ask? All it is adding a home run to Pap's pick.
The home run. It's not easy.
The home run's big.
Yeah, it's bold. I like it. Kratz?
I love it. I'm going over 7.5. I actually bought it up to 7.5 in the Marlins. The Marlins and the, forget who they're even playing, the Rays. Thank you. Jeffrey Springs coming on his first start of the season. Edward Cabrera's got a 7 ERA, and the over is 7.5. I'm taking the over at plus 100 even money.
Oh, I like that, Kratz.
I like that too.
Man.
I'll go quick too.
6+ in 5 of the last 6 games.
It's a good tail there. Yeah, plus a hundo. I'll go minus 130 Cubs money line, taking down the Cincinnati Reds. They smacked them yesterday. Reds are kind of feeling dejected as they did a little sell. Cubs kind of did a buy, right? With Paredes joining the fold now. Bellinger's back, so they'll probably be an annoying team that upsets some playoff contenders down the stretch here.
Just FYI, Gunnar Henderson, Chris Bassett, 3 for 6, 2 homers. Just FYI.
That is good. That is nice. That is nice. Pat, appreciate you. Good luck on your locks.
All right,
Good luck
man.
to your Sox.
Pap, enjoy your Nats fandom.
Hey, y'all have fun, and I'll be taking the Chicago White Sox every day till the season's over. I'll be going against them.
Well, that's
You already have all year.
Yeah.
Don't stop now.
Then dinner's on you for sure. You're crushing it.
See y'all.
All right. Later. Make sure you get the first bet offer, $1,500, up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if you use the bonus code FOUL. You download the app, sign up, and deposit at least $10 into your account. Place your first wager and receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if the bet loses. And if that happens, your bonus bets will be available once your initial wager is settled. Gambling problem or concern, call 1-800-GAMBLING. All right, we got 10 minutes, us three. Then if you're watching on YouTube, we appreciate you. We'll take some last-minute questions here, and then I'll be hosting the Hot Sheet Show on Baseball America's YouTube channel with JJ Cooper, Jeff Ponce, and friends. So some things have happened since we spoke. The Orioles make another trade with the Phillies. They get Gregory Soto from Philadelphia. Let's start there. Kratz, that's all you.
Walk, 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 walk.
True.
Nasty stuff. Gave a lot to the Tigers for him when they first got him, but man, when he's on 99 from that arm angle from the left side, it's awesome. But not enough consistency throwing the ball in the zone. You don't know where you're getting. And now they have the Orioles now have Kimbrel, Sir Anthony, and Gregory Soto.
They have last year's Phillies bullpen, which did not get them to the World
Alvarado.
Series. Yeah, exactly. Is Alvarado okay? He's probably home like, I'm not picking up.
Alvarado's gone through a little bit of a rough stretch too right now, but they decided to keep him. So nobody's safe in Dombrowski's bullpen.
Yes, the San Francisco Giants did a very slight buy. They got Mark Canha from the Tigers. Nice, but whoop-de-doo for the Giants.
Good for the Tigers.
Yeah, good for the Tigers. They traded who they should trade, guys that were going to be free agents. That was what we talked about the entire time. Arizona gets Dylan Floro. That's a nice one. That's from the Nats. Good bullpen piece for the Diamondbacks. They're smart like that. And then let's save this part for Slap Hand. So let's slap. I got something for you. We talked all day about what could happen and what did happen. We're going to do that tomorrow as well in terms of what did happen. What I want to cover for the last few minutes here is what did not happen, okay? I'll start with players. Finnegan didn't get moved. Nats closer. Skubal didn't get moved. We knew that. Blake Snell didn't get moved. Garrett Crochet didn't get moved. Here's one. Jamison Tyone didn't get moved. No?
They never even asked him. They never even asked him.
Right, so, okay. And the Angels didn't move Tyler Anderson, Luis Rengifo, and company. They moved Garcia and Estevez. I think that's it, right? They're two bullpen free agent guys. So they're going all in for 2025. Good for them. And then the Twins only got Trevor Richards.
Twins don't never do a lot, though.
They didn't do anything last year.
I know. And they look how far they won the division by. Different division, though. Even though someone we had on said the AL Central wasn't very good. I don't know who that was, but
yeah, it's been good. Hey, the Royals in that division, I think, did the best work.
Yeah, the Royals.
The Guardians got Lane Thomas and Alex Cobb. That's fine. That's very Guardians of them. The Royals getting Urseg is huge. Hunter Harvey.
They needed an outfielder for me, though.
Needed one more bat. Yeah, they got the young for infield depth.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually had a decent year.
Yeah, he'll hit you a homer.
Yeah. He'll play decent defense for you. Well, is he going to play
playing
second?
Short.
Right. Is he super utility?
Yeah, play third. Maybe try to play first a little bit here and there if they need a break.
A little second he can probably handle.
Yeah.
If Bobby somehow ever takes a day off, I don't know.
The Yankees got a reliever that touched 97 in the NBC World Series. The artist formerly known as Brett Phillips.
True.
That might have been their best pickup pitching-wise. Obviously, they got Jazz. They're excited about Jazz. He's had a good start. Yankees fans wanted some pitching.
Mm-hmm.
More pitching. They didn't get it. So who's the biggest loser?
Of all of them?
Yeah.
Garrett Crochet. He could have gone to a contender. Instead, he's stuck on the White Sox.
Do you think he would have been traded if he didn't put that out there?
I think if he didn't say what he said, I think he would have been traded. Or his agents. Whoever said what they said, I think he would have been moved. and he probably would have gone to the Dodgers.
But don't you think, because we talked about this for a while, that teams were trying to do their homework and figure out what the situation was, and they're like, hey, I want to acquire him, but what am I getting? It usually doesn't end well for a starter who's gone, so far past what he's done in the past. I'm just giving you the other side, right? You have to make sure you would have had to give up a lot for him.
But you asked me who the biggest loser is? He's going to have to endure another 40 losses this year.
They're going to shut him down in like 2 weeks.
Exactly. He's just going to have to sit there.
Yeah.
So, you asked who the biggest loser was. That for me, that's it.
Okay.
And maybe the Angels for not doing anything, but that's kind of become what we're used to.
Status quo. Yeah. What do you think, Kratz? Any other losers we haven't gotten to? We hit a bunch of winners.
I was going to say the Angels. That's it's tragic that they don't want to move off of that. I think a second place would be, had the Blue Jays not gotten such a haul for Kikuchi, I would have said the Blue Jays. I felt like they could have controlled the market, especially what they got for Kikuchi, having either Gausman or Bassett out there. But it didn't happen.
It's a lot of guys that didn't get moved that we had talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But some that did. So 2 minutes to go. Dodgers, I think, are an easy winner, especially getting Flaherty at the buzzer.
Listen, the Orioles, the Phillies.
Orioles for sure.
Royals.
Yep.
I think the Royals are sneaky, made the moves they needed to make without leveraging the farm.
Yeah.
Marlins for what Peter Bendix wanted.
Peter Bendix went into his office and said, he waved to everybody a few weeks ago, and then he goes to the office. He's like, I hate all of these guys.
I'll trade them all.
They're all gone.
If I could have traded Skip Schumacher, I would have.
He's grabbing each guy's poster on his wall, just taking it down. You're traded. You're traded. You're traded.
I love
rebuild, baby. Let's go.
Let's make it a 7-year rebuild.
I don't know how you buy into that. Don't accept that. But
come out to the Marlins Park tonight, where you'll see players on a field.
Number 99, number 96, number 92. Thank you so much for hanging with us. This really flew by. If you're watching on Bally Sports TV, the app, if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. We hustle every day. We're on 1 to 3 live every single day. If you're listening podcast-wise, type in Foul Territory. We have 6 other shows under our little umbrella, our little FT fam, and one of them is Baseball America Hot Sheet, which will be on in 3 minutes. So you can either stay where you are if you're on YouTube or flip over to the Baseball America channel and watch some trade recapping. We're back tomorrow to recap more.